It's time for Twit This Week in Tech. Christina Warren, Film Girl, is here, along with Jason Heiner from CNET, CBS Interactive, and from the Tech Meme Ride Home, Brian McCullough. We'll talk about Zoom, the problems, and what the alternatives might be. Is there a new iPhone on the horizon? We'll talk a little bit about that. And what's going on with weather? It's kind of a seamy underbelly of the weather industry. It's all coming up next on Twit. This Week in Tech comes to you from Twit's LastPass Studios. Stay in control when it comes to your company's access points and authentication. LastPass makes enterprise-level security simple for your remote workforce. Check out lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Twit, This Week in Tech, episode 765, recorded Sunday, April 5th, 2020. Holds each cheek separately. This Week in Tech brought to you by Fully. Fully is here to transform your workplace with furniture designed for health, flow, and balance. Whether you're shopping for yourself or your entire team, Fully can help. Save $50 off the Jarvis Standing Desk when you visit Fully, FULLY.com/twit. And by Barracuda. Did you know that 91% of all cyber attacks start with an email? To uncover the threats hiding in your Office 365 account, get a secure and free email threat scan at barracuda.com/twit. And by ExtraHop, the cybersecurity company that helps modern enterprises protect their businesses and keep critical systems available with cloud-native threat detection and response. Check out the full product demo and more at extrahop.com/twit. And by FreshBooks. Are you struggling to choose the right accounting software for your business? Let FreshBooks help you. The #1 accounting software in the cloud for self-employed professionals and their teams. Try it free for 30 days at freshbooks.com/twit. It's time for Twit, This Week in Tech, the show where we cover the latest Twit news. No, we cover the latest tech news. Twit is the show that covers it. It's confusing. Christina is here. Hey, Christina Warren, Senior Cloud Advocate at Microsoft, but better known as a podcaster and for many years a tech journalist and one of our dearest friends, Film Girl. Hi, Film Girl.
Hey, Leo. How are you?
I'm great. Are you still doing all the other podcasts? Is everything as normal in that regard?
Yes. So in that regard, we're still doing Rocket. Every week. And I'm actually, one of the reasons that I was kind of late kind of getting on Twit was I was picking up some stuff because we are moving our Channel 9 setups to be recording from home as much as we can. So I needed something to be able to connect my Sony camera to my computer so that I can use it with OBS as a webcam so that I can connect with producers who are also working remotely so that they can do some of our live production stuff that way.
It's
not as similar to the setups you guys have.
Yeah, it's so much fun for us here at Twit to watch as everybody kind of starts to do the kinds of things we've been doing for our 15th anniversary episodes in 2 weeks. So it's been a long time.
Oh my, it's 15 years already. Wow. Because I knew that was coming up.
Yeah.
And that's crazy. That's crazy.
We didn't start with video. Of course, we were audio at first, but it didn't take too long to get video. Yeah, I should mention that in 2 weeks, it'll be the original Twits. It'll be Kevin Rose, Patrick Norton, and Robert Heron doing the show on April 19th as we celebrate 15 years since we started Twit. Kind of amazing. Also with us, Brian McCullough. By that measure, he is a newbie at podcasting, the Tech Meme Ride Home, a mere few years old. It's great to see you, Brian.
Great to see you. By the way, newbie, I just did my 600th episode
the
last week.
History podcast?
No, of the Tech Meme Ride Home podcast.
Yeah, but you do 5 a week. Actually, more than that. You do 7 a week now, right?
Right. We do the weekend episodes, and I'm doing 2 podcasts a day because we launched.
Wow.
We shut down one of our other shows, our politics show. And so now 3 weeks ago, we started the Coronavirus Morning Report.
Oh, cool. I'll start listening to that. That's great.
Yes. In the morning, usually by 10 a.m. Every weekday morning, the Coronavirus Morning Report. And then as soon as I'm done with that, I start on the Tech Meme Show, and that comes out at 4.
So what would be is there one URL for all of this?
Ridehome.info.
Okay.
Would have all of our shows, but search Coronavirus Morning Report, search Tech Meme Ride Home.
Yeah, nobody subscribes these days. Nobody subscribes via the net, but just so that you can see what there is. Nice. Coronavirus Morning Report. How long is that?
15 to 20 minutes. All our shows are 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah, I'll never understand that. I did Clockwise the other day on Relay FM. You've done it, Christina. And it was half an hour. And it's like,
it is a tight half hour.
It's a tight half. I'm just getting started. What? Over? No. Mostly we go a couple hours. Also want to say hi to another this is fun because it's old friends today. Jason Heiner is also here. Jason, of course, was at Tech Republic for many years now. He's editorial director at CNET. Every day is a fresh start, it says behind him over his shoulder. That's nice. It's
Very
fun.
Good. No, thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, always a pleasure. It's fun to see everybody out of the office. And I don't just mean you guys. I mean Anderson
everybody.
Cooper. I mean everybody. It's even the network news now is coming from people's homes. It's so strange. And it's very funny to see them dealing with stuff that we figured out years ago. You know, the guy who insists on using his iPhone headphones and it's scratching against his collar yesterday I was watching I can't remember who it was, somebody, and I couldn't understand them. They had the worst audio in the world. Saw another guy out of Arkansas. He had his phone to his ear because he couldn't figure out how to get audio working. It's just wild to see all of that. But I'm glad to see everybody.
I'm glad people are doing it, but this is an opportunity for you, Leo. Like, if you wanted, you could put out Skype or
I could do
Zoom
network quality shows.
No, but what you could do is consulting sessions with some of these broadcast networks.
Yeah, I probably should.
This is what you need to do to set things up.
They don't want to hear from me. They like figuring it out on their own. I did Good Morning America a couple of days ago, and Becky Worley, who was their tech geek host, said, "Can you get the microphone out of the shot?" Because as you know, in fact, I always know when I see somebody on a news show with a microphone in front of them, oh, that's a podcaster. We always have our microphones in our face. That's how we do it here. But apparently network has not yet gotten used to that. It's enjoyable. And then on the other hand, I'm learning new skills. I just bought a sewing machine. Gonna start up a little face mask business in my spare time.
So sewing machine right there. That was my wife is doing that all afternoon.
Oh, nice. Look at that. Was she making face masks?
She was making face masks.
Now, do they have a special one for you? Because you got a beard. That makes it a little tougher, doesn't it? Oh, look.
Well, for the seal, I guess. No, but there's those kinds where you're supposed to have like an insert, like you can put like a cloth inside it, so it's got a pouch or something.
Is that what she's making?
I think so.
Nice. I love it. Home crafts. She's
the instructions on how to do a face mask.
Oh, look at that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, the world has changed. It's so many unusual and interesting ways. Of course, a lot of people who weren't using Zoom all of a sudden are using Zoom, which is, I would guess, the #1 video conferencing technology. Zoom says they went from 10 million daily active users in December to 200 million last month. And of course, as a result, we're seeing all sorts of problems.
First of all, that's crazy numbers, by the way, before we get into the problems. Yeah. I mean, when have you heard of a platform going from 10 to 200 in a month?
Not since Facebook.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably the last time we've seen that type of growth, right? Would be Facebook, and even then, I don't know if you saw that uptick that quickly.
Yeah.
Potentially once they kind of hit their stride and were going to more and more places, maybe you did, like maybe once they really started investing in Asia and South America. But that's probably the last time I've ever
Zoom win
seen
this?
like that.
It seems like was Zoom the #1 choice in business? I mean, what about Cisco WebEx or GoToMeeting or Microsoft Teams?
It's ease of use.
It's just
what I think it is.
Yeah.
It's ease of
only
use
one
and
that really
it's
works.
relatively cheap.
Right.
Sorry, go on, Jason.
It's also
No,
that's the problem, though, is it was so easy to use that's why they're running into these problems. And some of the people are saying that some of the fixes that they're trying to do now are going to be kind of shooting themselves in the foot, because even doing something simple like having a password to join a Zoom call is going to make it more difficult for people to use.
Yeah. Well, here's an interesting story. Zoom bombing is now a federal offense that could result in imprisonment. I don't know if that's reduced the number of Zoom bombs. Federal prosecutors are saying that if it was posted as a press release to the Department of Justice website under the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of I don't know what state, of some state, with support from the state attorney general and the FBI, probably New York. I would guess that the most aggressive in something like this. Zoom bombing is a big problem for schools, for churches. I have a friend in a 12-step program, a recovery program, and of course they can't meet in person anymore. They do their meetings as Zoom meetings, and because they're public, of necessity, anybody can come in, and people are doing horrific, offensive, triggering things. Not just pornography, not just racial epithets, but intentionally going after alcoholics, things like that. It's just appalling, and it's my understanding that a lot of the organizing is going on. I'm sure it's happening at 4chan and 9chan. Discourse is being used. There's a discourse channel for Zoom bombing where they share public IDs for Zoom events so that they can all have so much fun. It's just shocking, really, how awful some people can be.
Yeah, it's funny. My mom sent me like an email. I guess this was maybe Tuesday this week, maybe Wednesday. We were, I think, in the middle of either the first or the second wave of Zoom scandals of the week, and her Bible study is going to be using Zoom, and she wanted to know, she was like, should I use this? Maybe I don't want to bother with it at all. Yeah. And so I sent her a detailed thing. I took the time to take the screenshots and go through the process. I was like, this is how you can join from your web browser. Just that's going to be your best bet. Don't sign up for an account. Don't do the other things. But I was really proud of her, A, for reading and keeping up on it, and B, asking, okay, what's the best way for me to do this?
It's hard to miss the news. It's all over the place because everybody's using it.
Sure.
Yeah,
definitely. But still, I'm still proud of my mom for wanting to know how can I mitigate it? Even asking the question, should I be using this? And part of me wants to be no, don't use this at all. And then another part of me is yeah, but I don't want you to miss out on being able to connect with people. That's to me, I think the hard thing about having the advice to just be, don't use this product. If you're an enterprise or a school or something, I think that's one thing where maybe you should appeal to the higher authorities who make those decisions to say, have you actually vetted this? But if the decision's already been made, and this is what your school is using, or your Bible study, or your, AA meeting, or something else, if that's what they're choosing to do, it's a really, I think, not fair thing to say to regular people, well, just opt out of this. Just don't use this communications. It's the same thing when people say, oh, well, just don't be on Facebook, where it's okay, that comes from a really privileged position to be able to make that point.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. And the thing about Zoom, look, there's still lots of great things about Zoom. It's funny, we used to have, up until the last couple of years, I've even been saying really until the last 18 to 24 months when Zoom has kind of gotten much more popular, we used to have this joke for the last 4 or 5 years of, we've got self-driving cars, but we still can't get a video call to work, and we still can't get a PowerPoint, and Zoom really has kind of solved that. It has gotten to where it's made these things easy enough that you can get a lot of people connected. I agree with Christina. People shouldn't be too freaked out about it. Obviously, the NSA shouldn't be using it for, and some companies that are doing corporate secrets. You saw SpaceX say that they're, they banned it. Well, that makes sense. They're dealing with highly proprietary and sensitive information, right? That deals with their core business. So that makes perfect sense. For the average people, stuff. I had a friend that yesterday did their on their Zoom. They did their sister's baby shower, and it was amazing. And she talked about the fact that what it's enabling them to do. And I did this wonderful organization called Interfaith Paths to Peace, because a lot of religious organizations, they don't really have tech departments. And so this organization has helped sort of provide a platform using Zoom where people of different faiths can come together and, have fellowship and be able to worship together and get inspiration. So there's great things that are going on with Zoom. The thing where the onus is the people who are hosting these meetings, they just need to implement a few good things. Brian mentioned the password thing, which now Zoom is kind of imposing. You can still send somebody a Zoom link with that password essentially embedded in that link. And so it makes it easy for them to just click and join. But if somebody's doing that random looking, typing in random Zoom numbers or finding, random Zoom rooms to jump into, they can't get in if they don't have the password. And even then, if you set up a waiting room, the host of a Zoom can help kind of screen people. And if they see people that are jumping in and are being inappropriate, you can hit the remove or, jump them back to the waiting room if for some reason it's somebody you don't recognize. So there's plenty of ways to mitigate this for most people that are using Zoom. It's just that the people who are using it and were considering using it to do very proprietary things, they obviously need to think twice about it. But by the same token, it's still better than like we used to do these calls where, you have your number, you dial into an 800 number, and then you put in your corporate sort of 9-digit ID. Well, the thing is, we never knew who was on those calls. With Zoom, at least you can see who is on there. And so it is generally even more secure, even as insecure as it is right now, the problems it has with encryption and those kinds of things, it's still a step up from the average conference call.
But my question is because, we've been talking about consumers using this, but the question that I have is, usually you see problems like this when you have a consumer product try to move into enterprise. This is an enterprise product that's suddenly being used by consumers, right. But there are all these security issues. Where were the CIOs and CTOs? Where was everybody checking out all of the security problems that Zoom had before this?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I actually disagree. I disagree with Zoom. Zoom says that they were an enterprise product that is now being used by consumers. I will say I think that's patently false, and I think they're being misleading when they say that. They may have had some specific enterprise, implementations, like apparently they have one for HIPAA, but the vast majority of the times that I was using Zoom was either for small teams things. I saw a lot of startups using it, individuals kind of wanting an easy way to set up conferencing systems, or hobbyists, So I think that really most of their users before this were small businesses, startups, maybe medium-sized business, places that don't have CIOs and CTOs that are going to be looking at
businesses had WebEx. They would use the big Cisco conferencing systems, much more expensive, much more complicated, but better quality.
So I don't think it was. Yeah, exactly. It's very much like Slack in that sense. And a lot of people use Slack and Zoom together. And so I actually reject their statement that it was enterprise because I don't think it was. If it was enterprise, to your point, Brian, we wouldn't have seen some of these things because that would have been a complete breaker. What I think has happened, though, is that as there were companies, even big companies that might not have had solutions that worked for this number of people, like one of the big, frankly, like the secret sauce of Zoom, not just its ease of use, but also its quality and its relative ease for having very large groups of video chat working together in a way that WebEx and some of the other solutions just can't do. And to my knowledge, they're still the only solution where you can see kind of everyone's video at once in that kind of style. And I know that some other products are working at bringing that type of feature up, but they're the only one who does it
there's a great open source solution that I use called Jitsi.
Yeah.
And I set up in about 10 minutes. I set up a Jitsi server at home that we use.
But how many people can you do with that? How many people can you do with that? Because I've heard that it really caps out around 12 or 13. And so that would be my only remark, because I'm talking about people who might need 20 or more.
It depends on bandwidth that you have available to it. It can do 100 people easily. In fact, I've seen bandwidth tests with Jitsi. It's very light on the CPU usage. It's really about bandwidth. The thing to remember with any service is for a video service to work, especially in the way you want, where you have the grid of people, you have to have it unencrypted at the server side. And so when Zoom says it's end-to-end encrypted, it's not in the same way we understand end-to-end, which means no one can see it except the participants. Zoom can see it. Jitsi's the same way. It's encrypted But at some point, the server needs to coordinate, so it needs to be unencrypted. But the beauty of Jitsi is it's open source. You can run your own server, IAM, and then it is fully private. There's no one can see it. It has some of the same problems Zoom would have. You still have to set up a password if you want to protect it. And that's the big problem for churches, for schools, maybe not so much schools, but certainly for churches and recovery groups and groups that want to be public. You can set up a waiting room. You can do all sorts of things, but ultimately you can't lock it down because you want anybody who be able, who wants to come to the meeting, come to the meeting. And so that's the problem people are having. And that would be the same problem with, I think, any service.
Well, and I think what happened, though,
I first hated Zoom months ago when they had that problem, and a security researcher warned them about this with malware. They installed on the Mac a web server, a hidden web server that would run all the time on your Mac. Their idea was, of course, that you should be able to just click a link and Zoom would launch. But this hidden web server did not go away when you uninstalled Zoom. It stayed there. Again, so that even if you uninstalled Zoom, you click a link, Zoom behind the scenes does what it needs to do to get a thing going. And hackers discovered it and started using it to inject malware into Macintoshes. Zoom had been warned about this, dragged their feet fixing it. Apple finally had to push out a fix on their own. Apple actually had to push out a malware fix on Macintoshes because Zoom wouldn't fix it. Now, Zoom says, in their credit, I guess, that they're going to stop. They said this week. They're going to stop working on new features. Everybody on the Zoom team is going to work on privacy and security features. So I guess the proof will be in the pudding. But I lost faith in Zoom when they claimed end-to-end encryption when that wasn't the case, and when they didn't fix this server problem. And, of course, then there have been other reported issues. The iOS version sent data to Facebook because they used a Facebook SDK. Zoom stopped doing that, but they only seem to stop this stuff after they get caught. They were routing calls through a China call center. They said, oops, we did that because we were so loaded up. Oops, we won't do that anymore. I don't know. I'm not against Zoom. I've tried, by the way, we use it for all our sales calls. I've tried to get Lisa. I said, I have this great Jitsi server. You could use this. It even has our brand in the name because I set up a domain for it. Said, nah, Zoom. Everybody knows Zoom. Everybody knows Zoom. And it's hard to get people to use something else. So I'm hoping Zoom will step up. There's an opportunity here for them to step up.
I'm hoping they are too, but I'm with you. Look, when the thing happened last summer with them installing the web server, and honestly, it was their response to that really bothered me more than it was even the act itself. That initially they barred the security researcher. They wouldn't communicate. They tried to kind of sweep it under the rug, say that it wasn't a big deal. And then once they were properly chastened, they had a belated apology. And the whole thing put a bad taste in my mouth. And
it was very Facebooky.
Very much so. And
move fast, break things, apologize later, then keep doing it.
And our team had been using Zoom, and after that, we were like, we're done. We're not using this anymore. And so I was done with it then. But if someone else wants to use it for something, I'm not going to be like zealous about like, oh, I refuse to use the system you want to do. What bothers me now, though, and this is the thing that bothers me from all the different issues they've had, is that I think that one of the reasons that we're seeing this is because they've gone from 10 million to 200 million users. Yeah. So they're getting an outsized, amount of attention. And I think if you put this attention on any sort of service, you would see, you would also be able to find flaws, right? But the thing that bothers me is that they have this amazing differentiator. In the IRC right now, we're kind of all talking about how the system hasn't changed in 22 years and they're all terrible. And that's basically true. Zoom has been the first thing that works really well. It's easy to set up. I think the reason you saw enterprises who maybe normally would have gone through a stronger vetting process, not go through that process, is they suddenly had to be remote for the first time and needed to support a large number of people and just started with it, right? So I think that's another reason why it's had so much adoption. But they have this huge differentiator. They are easy to use. It's well done. It has good features. It's high quality. That's something that is a massive differentiator. And rather than using that as the selling point, and rather than using that as what they want to focus on, everything that they've done, it seems like, has been in, search of like sort of growth hacking and kind of cutting corners. And it makes me question a lot of fundamental things about the company. I love the product, but to be totally honest, I'm not convinced by even the latest blog post that the CEO put out. I don't really feel like I believe anything. I don't feel like they have proven themselves to be trustworthy, which is so disappointing because this is genuinely a product that is head and shoulders ahead of the competition. And I feel like they're squandering a lot of this by going after ways to growth hack.
A lot of the things that make Zoom good, Jitsi does. For instance, Jitsi uses a more modern protocol, WebRTC, which means you don't have to install any software. If you're using Chrome, it's just a link, and it does it in Chrome without any additional software. And that's really nice. That really is easy to use.
And I look, in Jitsi, that's great. I think if we're being honest, the setup process of people getting started with Jitsi Meet, whether they use that service or set up their own instance.
You don't have to set up anything. I could send you a link right now, and you could use it in your browser. No setup. You're just in. That's pretty easy.
Right, but I mean, like if you're a business and you want to set up your own instance, is what I meant. Like if you wanted to control.
Yeah, but you don't have to. They offer a free version. And honestly, if you've got Debian running or any Debian derivative running, it's a simple apt install Jitsi Meet. You're done. It does Let's Encrypt automatically. You're done. It was so easy for me to set up. It was trivial. I agree. Many businesses aren't going to want to do that, but you don't have to do that. I could set up. Watch. I'll send you a link right now. You can try it. Go to Twitter.
I would be cautious about whether Jitsi could support 200 million daily active users.
Should we see? Let's see. Twit.team/twit. Let's just see. I'm going to set it up. Secure connection failed. Uh-oh. Maybe not. Never mind. We'll do this another time. I don't know what happened there.
I think one of the things we have to also take into account, there's a lot of self-inflicted wounds on Zoom's part. To Christina's,
but that's the question: is it accidental, or are these guys nefarious? As Bruce Schneier said in his post, the errors that Zoom has committed fall into three broad practices: bad privacy, bad security, bad user configurations. That doesn't sound like ineptitude. That's starting to sound a little bit like.
And there's a fourth too, because they were sort of leaving doors open to do tracking and things like that.
They were because they had a free tier and they wanted to monetize the free tier. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Go ahead, Jason.
I think that the comparison to early Facebook is especially, I think, poignant because of it was very much like you say, move fast, break things, innovate, create a great product, and you apologize later when we make some mistakes. Not a great business model. I think Facebook is finally feeling the pain of that from a user standpoint, and it's likely to, although there has been some indication that some of the people who've left Facebook are going back during this time, but also people have a ton of time on their hands. So, I don't know if I'd take that as a long-term, move.
For geeks.
Go ahead.
So this is for all of us a question. Because this is not an unusual conundrum for geeks. We know better. We know that this isn't a good idea. We know what's wrong with it. We know in great detail what's wrong with it. And yet, I mean, we had a family meeting on Friday, and I tried to use my server, my Jitsi, and one member couldn't get it working, so we went back to Zoom. For geeks, it's easy to say, oh yeah, here's all the reasons. But as you said, Christina, it's hard, and Zoom just works. So what should we say as geeks? I did a radio show on Thursday, and I said, well, yeah, it's got all these problems, but I know it's easy to use, so go ahead. It's not that dangerous, is it?
I don't know.
Christina, go ahead.
I would be really cautious.
Should I tell people not to use it?
I'm not going to tell people not to use it. I am going to say if you're going to be having any sorts of conversations where you might be sharing really private or personal things that you're worried about maybe other people having access to, I would be sensitive to that. Like, for instance, if, a school is using it, I would say, okay, look, I understand we can't switch, what we're doing mid-cycle, but when the school year starts up again, if we're still doing, learning from home stuff, look at using another solution. And I would say definitely to people, even if it causes more friction, set a password for the meeting that you're doing, because as Jason said, you can send out a link that has the password appended to it, which still makes it relatively easy to join.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. Not at the point yet. By the way, though, everybody who clicks that link will install Zoom on their system. And that's problematic, right? It sits there for the rest of your life.
I mean, you can choose not to install it, and there is a way you can join from the web browser, which they try to hide. So you don't have to install the app. They try to hide it away. This is what I sent to my mom. I annotated the whole thing, and I was like, this is what you need to do to join your Bible study. Don't install the app. And so that's kind of what I'm telling people. I'm like, look, don't install the app. Use it from Chrome or a Chrome-based web browser, because I think it might have some issues in Firefox and Safari. And, don't create an account if you're not super comfortable with that. If you have the opportunity to use alternatives and you think people will do it, I think I would go there. But I'm not, at least me, just speaking for me, I'm not yet at the point where what they're doing, even though I don't have a lot of trust in the company, I'm not yet at the point where I want to say to people, don't use this, because I don't know if any of the replacement solutions we have are consumer friendly enough where you can make that assertion without having, okay, well, what are we going to use?
That's the conclusion I came to. I told them about other choices like Jammy and Jitsi, which are open source. But I said, but you know what? It's not the end of the world if you use Zoom. What do you think, Brian? What do you tell people?
I tell people that the people that are also winning aside from Zoom would be our friend Christina at Microsoft and their Teams product, who were the ones that were reporting the biggest numbers before Zoom revealed their numbers. And by the way, Christina, I will say this. The joke I made on my show was, how the old saw used to be, no one ever got fired for going with IBM. Like my wife's architecture firm, it was no question. As soon as they knew they had to work from home, they said, all right, Microsoft Teams it is.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah,
and it's getting better. I mean,
Teams is going to benefit from this, but they only have 50 million daily, actually, subscribers. Did Microsoft not offer a free during this crisis? There is a free version. There is a free version. The way that it's set up right now, though, like you can do it as an individual, you can do it for schools and for other things. And it's I think like a 6-month free is what they've got offered. And you can sign up with. One of the speed bumps is though you have to create a Microsoft account.
No, actually, some of the personal things you can actually authenticate with a non-Microsoft account. The issue is it's still not going to be as seamless for setting up something like Teams as it would be to do something like Zoom, because Teams is kind of a combination between something like Zoom and something like Slack. And it's frankly it's SharePoint underneath. So there's like a whole file server component. There's the chat function, and then there's the video part. They did announce this week, I believe, and I don't know. I don't work on that team, so I don't know the details. But there's going to be a more consumer version of Teams, I think, that's going to be coming later in the year.
This is the Microsoft 365 product, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
And
that I think I think the sooner they can do that, the better, because there's clearly an appetite for this. And look, it may be more competition, will make Zoom take some of these concerns more seriously and get in a way where their engineering and their other kind of business decisions make us all feel a little bit better.
So it didn't get you your recommendation though, Brian. What do you tell people? Do you say use Zoom? It's okay. It's not so bad.
Everyone I know uses FaceTime anyway. So
if they're all Apple users, that's a better choice. 32 people in a group, that's usually enough.
And that's what I did do, though. It hasn't come yet. I did break down and buy the Facebook portal, and I'm going to try that out. I got the one where you can put it in front of your TV. Yeah. Well, did you see that? Someone wrote an article a week ago that totally convinced me. They're like, this is the time for it. It's mainly because I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. And because
grandma has Facebook.
Exactly. So theoretically, like I said, I haven't gotten it yet. That TV version, it's like a sound bar. You put it underneath the TV, and then it has that Facebook technology where it follows people around, which 3 months ago sounded creepy as hell. But right now, if I don't have to sit there, be the cinematographer the whole time, every time we talk to grandma and grandpa, that sounds pretty darn good to me.
I have to say, though, that any solution that requires you have to have an iPhone or you have to be a Facebook member or you have to have a Microsoft account is going to be difficult, certainly for schools. Although somebody just told me the New York City schools are using Teams.
100%. So I've got a kindergartner. They do. They have done. I think the video meetups are on Zoom. But then all of their work stuff is submitted and is like they get the materials through Microsoft Teams as well.
Yeah. By the way, I figured out why I can't get to Jitsi from here. We have too good of an IT department. Cisco Umbrella is blocking access to my to my server. Okay. Russell, could you please open? But that's a problem, right? I bet you Zoom goes right through. In fact, I know it goes right through.
Probably true.
So that's another issue.
I tell you,
what do you tell people, Jason?
Yeah. So I think the other, so I tell them continue to use Zoom, but a lot of the onus is on Zoom hosts to improve some of their best practices in these things. I also, even before this, I told people, if you got something really confidential, you don't want to be doing it in any of these platforms.
What would you use if you really wanted to be private?
I mean, a phone.
It's true. No, it's true. The phone company is more protected than any digital service.
Yeah.
For historic reasons, if nothing else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For all of these things, I don't have a ton of trust in them. Today it's Zoom, but it's because Zoom is under the spotlight. If it was another one of these products,
I agree.
Another one of these products, we'd be kicking the tires on it and we'd be finding all the problems that they have.
Absolutely.
Which isn't a terrible thing, right? Because if you have that much attention and you have that many people using it, by all means, you deserve to have that kind of scrutiny. And then, if they want to stay in business, they will fix these things. I think that the challenge is that, the more consumer friendly something is, there just is this natural push and pull, right? Security and convenience. And it's a tough line to walk. And that's not an excuse for Zoom. But I think some of these things are a little bit of an inevitability of they made things so easy. They tried to make things so easy that the horrible web server thing, which is a terrible idea, but at the core, it was one of those things that made it simple enough that you could just send somebody a link and they could easily get into a video conference. One of the hardest problems to solve over the past couple of decades, as we've talked about. And so, there's just sort of those tough trade-offs that not everybody really wants to think about or is going to think about, the average consumer. So these things are a necessary part of Zoom being under the spotlight of so many people using it. They've made some really poor choices and some things that they've got to fix. And I hope that they do, to all the points that everybody's made, because it is a good product. They have solved some things, and now they really need to up their game on privacy and security while still holding the balance on usability. And I don't envy them that, but that's some important work that they're going to need to do.
There is some question about, apparently the Washington Post found a treasure trove of Zoom video recordings on the internet, including one-on-one therapy sessions, training orientation for workers doing telehealth calls, which included people's names and phone numbers, small business meetings, which included private company financials, elementary school classes in which children's faces, voices, and personal details were exposed, a video including nudity, such as one where an esthetician teaches students how to give a Brazilian wax. Maybe useful, but probably they didn't expect that to be stored on the internet. Apparently they're in S3 buckets. In a lot of cases, how they're getting recorded, is Zoom doing that in the background, is unknown. Schneier's bottom line is Zoom is a security and privacy disaster, but until now it managed to avoid public accountability because it was relatively obscure. Now that it's in the spotlight, it's all coming out. He mentions the company's announcement they're going to work on security. Let's see if that's anything more than a PR move. In the meantime, you should I think he agrees with what we've all said. You should either lock down Zoom as best you can, or better yet, abandon the platform altogether. He mentions also Jitsi as a distributed, free, and open source alternative. By the way, it's before Elon Musk's SpaceX banned the use of Zoom, NASA had forbidden it for some time. It's not. I don't think the Department of Defense allows it. People who do pay attention to security have a long banned Zoom. Yes. I think it's just unknown whether Zoom is poorly run or malicious.
Right.
But either way, it's not a good look.
Yeah, it almost doesn't matter right now. I mean, I think ultimately, whether it's incompetence or just people having nefarious purposes, that ultimately is a good question to ask. Right now, I don't think it matters. It's just a matter of being aware of what these things are. And as Jason said, any place that had this much attention would be having similar scrutiny, and we would find similar things that would make us uncomfortable. That said, there are some things about this that do seem to be even more making me go, actually, I don't know about this.
It's hard to tell, but it might actually be worse than others. Brian Krebs,
I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying I don't want it to go into a place of, if we weren't putting any other insert here service under the, spotlight, it would be completely fine just because it's been vetted by big IT teams. Like that's not necessarily true either.
And hackers have a tool, Brian Krebs tweeted this a couple of days ago, called Z War Dial, that will find 100 unprotected Zoom meetings an hour. You could just run it and run it and run it and find these meetings. And I would guess that's what the Zoom bombers are using. And while the feds are saying it's a federal crime, you could do jail time, most of these kids are smart enough and know enough to keep themselves anonymous while they're doing this nasty, nasty work. That's all right. You know what? For a lot of families, House Party's a good choice. Do play games on House Party.
Yeah.
FaceTime, if you've all got iPhones or Apple devices, FaceTime is, again, encrypted except for Apple. But, people, I think, trust Apple a little bit more than Zoom. They certainly have better security policies in place. And you can even use a Facebook portal, you nut. I bought two of those. I bought two of those big, tall portals when they first came out. But I was thinking of giving one to my mom. I didn't want to inflict that on her. But we do phone calls all the time over FaceTime. And it works great. In fact, I'll set Mom up. We used to do this with the Echo Show. I do it with FaceTime now. I'll put her on the iPad and set her up while I'm cooking dinner and stuff. And it's a great way to kind of, for all of us who are, she's 87, she's alone, she's isolated. It's a great way for us to be together. And I think, I'm glad Zoom exists. It's a tool people are using. And, I'm glad it exists. There are alternatives. But I'd hate to say, don't use Zoom. Bad.
No. Imagine if Apple actually did open source FaceTime like they promised all those years ago.
If only.
If only. I think that was actually a patent thing that was not, from what I've talked to people about, I think what actually happened there was a patent troll who said there was something, I guess, within the FaceTime protocol that violated something.
That's right.
And that was ultimately why
it was the Vernet patent. And I think when Steve said we're going to make it open source in the announcement, I think they didn't anticipate that there was some encumberment, whether it was genuine or not, that would make it impossible for them to do that. So I don't think this is a case of Apple walking that back because they wanted to protect their profits. I think it was something else. Let's take a little break. We have lots more to talk about. It doesn't have to be the Zoom show, but I thought it'd be good to kind of do the ultimate discussion of Zoom, so everybody we can get that out of our system. No more. Now I want to talk about outfitting your home office. We're all working at home, right? And poor Lisa at first was sitting on a dining room chair. She put extra cushions on it. I am so glad Fully is here. I can't wait. I got the Capisco chair by Hag. It's beautiful. This is a chair that lets you sit backwards or forwards. You can ride it backwards or you can sit forwards. It has all these buttons and knobs and dials, all sorts of adjustments. There's all sorts of thoughtful touches, too. This is a chair that can go very high or very low, but has a footrest that makes it extremely comfortable no matter what level you're sitting at. Here's the desk. This is one of the rising desks. This is the Cora. It's a standing desk converter. It's very lightweight. It's thin. You can put it on any desk and turn it into a standing desk. I love that. I just love everything Fully sells. If you're ready to turn your office into a much more comfortable, look at the TikTok. That's a fun little stool you sit on that moves back and forth with you. Make your office somewhere you want to be. I suspect a lot of people who are working from home right now are going to say, I'm staying. If you make your office good enough, they also have the Jarvis monitor arm, which I ordered, so we can get my monitor up off the desk. Fully is here to transform your workplace with furniture designed for health, for flow, for balance. It's helping people and businesses across the U.S., Canada, and Europe make the transition to working from home with modern, good-looking, environmentally friendly, ethically manufactured office furniture. They ship free, direct, and next day. You don't have to feel chained to the kitchen table or whatever makeshift workstation you're set up on. We've moved Lisa off of the kitchen table to a standing desk that goes up and down. Fully's chairs encourage healthy sitting in a variety of postures, and that's really nice. So you can move around, keep blood flowing, keep your mind engaged. I just really like what Fully's doing. Whether you're shopping for yourself or your entire team, Fully is here to help. If you're looking to transition your entire team, call them. They can help set you up. And if you're an individual, just want to get a really comfortable desk or chair, you could save $50 off the Jarvis standing desk by going to Fully, FULLY.com/twit. Fully.com/twit. You get $50 off the standing desk, and you tell them you heard it on Twit, and that helps us a lot. Fully is everything you need to make your work flow. I love my Fully products. You will, too. Fully is awesome. And a really nice company, too. I love the Fully story. It's just really, really cool. Thank you, Fully. One of the new sponsors. We have several new sponsors on the show today, so I'm glad to say it. It's been a tough time, I think, for a lot of our sponsors because sales have dried up and gone away, and so we've let a lot of sponsors out of their contracts. But then you're getting new sponsors that offer products that are suited to this new era we're in. So I thought by now we'd have an iPhone 9. I thought it was going to happen Tuesday. I thought it was going to happen Wednesday. Still nothing, right? Christina, you probably have your ear to the grindstone.
I try. Yeah.
Tracks.
I mean, you know, the name is apparently going to be what the iPhone SE is what the leak from the screen protector on the website store said. And
does that bother you? They're keeping the old SE name. The old SE was based on an iPhone 5 and very small. It was 4 point some inches. This is based on an iPhone 6S, 8. I think. 8.
No, this is based on the 8. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So this is big. This is much bigger.
Well,
Not
it's
anything
bigger.
like the old SE.
No, well, it's bigger, but it's still smaller than the phones that are being sold right now. So it's the 8, not the 8 Plus. So it still has, Touch ID. It doesn't have the FaceTime camera. It doesn't have 3D Touch, which is supposed to help battery. And this is going to still be, I think the SE name is fine because it is going to be physically smaller than either the iPhone 11, the 11 Pro, or the 11 Pro Max, which is still the worst name ever. But I
call it the 11 Flow Max. But maybe that's
that's funny. I like my 11 Pro Max very much, but not the name. So it is still going to be the smallest phone that they offer. It's just going to be.
Some people are disappointed.
So
I know some people really like having a small phone, but they had to make it bigger also because I think they're putting a modern processor, the same chip as in the iPhone 11 Flow Max. They're the A13. They're putting more memory in it. I'm sure more storage in it. Anyway, I lost a bet. I was sure they weren't going to call it the 9 because it makes no sense once you've got to 11 to go back to 9. I thought, and I didn't think they'd call it the SE because of the association with a very different looking phone. I thought they'd just call it iPhone. That's what they call the base model $329 iPad. It's iPad, right? So, but I lost that bet. It's going to be, according to 9 to 5 Mac, the iPhone SE.
I don't even remember what does SE, is that supposed to, I know there's the iPhone S originally. What is the E?
For speed. No, they never told us. You could be special edition, small edition. I don't know. They never told us. And I remember when the SE came out, and this was 4 years ago. It was one of the only times I've ever had a briefing with Apple where they gave me a phone and they said, "Well, there's no embargo, so you can post about it whenever." And I was like, "Okay, well, I have to get a review up in 24 hours then. Thanks for the heads up."
Thanks, Apple.
And fortunately, that was relatively easy to do, other than battery life, because the phone, the guts was the same as the 6S. But no, it was a 6S, but with the body of the 5. So I'd already reviewed the phone before. But I'd asked them, it was like, "What does SE stand for?" And they were like, There's no official thing that it stands for, so I don't know.
So
it's kind of like 10R. Like I don't know what the moniker. Somebody somewhere knows, but I have not heard.
It just feels like remember the old Mac SE? Like that's what it feels like. There's somebody there that is like, you know what? Let's give like a quiet nod back to the Mac SE because it was like it was the first like all-in-one package.
That's a good point.
Really, the Mac that really made the Mac at that time. Yeah,
Dr. Mom in our chat room says it should be called the Suckers Edition. No, it's actually a good deal. If you want a smaller,
it's a very good one.
It's $400. If you want a smaller, less expensive phone with modern processing, so you can continue to use the features of the operating system, that's a great deal. According to 9 to 5 Mac,
sell the 8.
Sorry,
go ahead. I was just going to wonder if they're still going to sell the 8. They're still selling the 8, and then the 8 Plus. And the 8, the 8 is 4.7 inches, which is what this one is supposed to be reportedly. And then but the Plus is 5.5, so it's much more, like the. I wonder if they'll still sell the Plus, but not the. Anyway, it's.
I don't know. They might. I mean, they've done that before where I think that they were still, I think when the SE came out, I think I don't know if they were still selling the regular, I think they were still selling the 6. I don't know if they were selling the 5S. Yeah, so, because right now they're selling, I could see them dropping and maybe keeping the Plus around, but I bet when next year rolls around, they might only, sell like last year's 11 and then have the SE and not go back as far as selling like the 10R or something like that, which I don't even think they still sell anymore. I think they dropped that entirely. So
the really crazy thing is they might still sell the 8 because I'm sure they still have there's been no reports of that thing going out of inventory. They may drop the price of that 8 down to like $199 or $250 or something, which would be insane. Then you would see a ton of those getting bought up.
Oh yeah. I would buy a couple, not in just to have like pay as you go plans, just to have basically, like souped up iPod touches, to be honest. If it were that price, I would buy like 3 right now just for like random iPod touches or for international travel.
Apple's never chased the low cost market, but I think there's an opportunity. I think Android, I'm an Android fan, but all the security issues with Android, all the problems with Android, I'm starting to think, maybe just everybody should have an iPhone. And if they offer them as low as $200 up to $1,200, if there's a full range of products, it gets easier to say that. The same thing with, we were just talking about FaceTime. You have to have an iPhone to use FaceTime. But if everybody has an iPhone, that's a good alternative. Jason, are you standing up?
I am, yeah.
Oh, because you took a stutter step and I thought, wait a minute, he's not sitting at a desk, he's standing up. Good for you.
I am.
Do you always stand up?
I do have it's funny. I loved the little, the last company,
Fully.
Last sponsor, Fully. Yeah. Because I have a little thing that I use. So every once in a while, if you see me go like that, it's because I'm picking up this.
Oh, you have a little wobble chair. Yeah.
I do, but I just kind of will lean a little.
It's got 2, it's like a figure 8, so it can hold each cheek separately.
That's right.
Okay, that's just my mind. That's where I went. White, 9 to 5 Mac, white, black, and product red. Nice. I like the reds. I got a red 10R. I loved it. 5 cases, black silicone, white silicone, red leather, black leather, and midnight blue leather. And the storage tiers, Apple will offer a 64 gig, 128, and 256 gig. Obviously, if they're going to keep it at $400, that'll be the 64 gig model. But we thought they didn't. Everybody said it'll be this week. Silence out of Cupertino.
If they do, they're obviously not going to do an event, but you figure they would do like, I don't know, a 5-10 minute video or something. Like there's no way that they would release a new iPhone and just update the store, right?
No, they did for the first SE. That's exactly what they did.
They do a press release update.
Yeah, it was a press release. They had briefings with a few members of the media. And like I said, it was the only time I've ever had an iPhone where there wasn't an embargo, because usually what happens is they have a couple of different layers of, when the announcement goes out. So they have the big unveil at the Apple event. And then depending on what tier the reviewer is in, they get their device either, 2 weeks or a week or the week of the release. And sometimes you might even have a briefing after the product comes out. And this is the only case I ever remember having a briefing and then asking, okay, well, when does the embargo lift? And they're like, there's no embargo.
No embargo. Do it now.
Yeah.
There was a rumor. I think somebody, Prosser tweeted last week, I think, that the briefings are going on now. So I thought, but maybe
not. So it might. Well, the only thing that made me question if it was going to come out, like once it hit Thursday and it hadn't been announced, I was like, oh, they're not going to Friday news dump it. So maybe they like Tuesdays, but I mean, I could see it as a Monday drop too.
This will be, these are unprecedented, weird times. Apple, I mean, imagine the difficulty Apple's having in looking at these phones, because normally if you're designing this, if you're working on this, you go into a building that's completely sealed, it's locked. You have to have special access. You can't take anything home. They check you. Now people have to, I guess, take stuff home. Bloomberg had an article, Apple tests its secrecy somewhere new, employee homes. This is Mark Gurman, of course, because it's Bloomberg. And it's got to be a challenge for Apple. A lot of things that Apple does, they never thought about work from home. They did put out a notice to staff saying, whether you're working at home or at the office, it's always critical to keep confidential work confidential. Always securely store confidential items and documents when not in use. Somebody told me that in some cases they were giving employees special safes in which to store these new products so that they could keep them from prying journalists.
You'd have to. Also, even just from seeing like family members stumbling across stuff that they're not supposed to see. Right?
Yeah. It's got to be a challenge because, of course, you want to keep working, but it's not easy. And then there's the production issue, although China says
that's the bigger one.
Foxconn says its factories are now coming back up to full speed. I don't know if that's
well, the problem is that China's not letting anybody fly into China.
Yeah.
So what's happened is that the factories are coming back online, but
there's no Apple employees to supervise.
And the issue is because they very much understandably have to keep the factories under lock and key, and you have to have a lot of special permission to even have like a phone that has photo capability or anything, is that they only have like a set number of approved devices. And typically how you can take a photo on the factory floor is you have to use a certain type of camera. You have to physically take the media card out of it, put it into a computer, and then securely transmit it. And so it can add sometimes a day, what used to be able to be maybe a couple of minute interaction to get, questions that are happening on the line or other issues back with an engineer in San Francisco. So, that I think is the bigger problem, is that they can't, people can't fly out and can't be there. So that's, I think, the bigger challenge rather than the factories are closed or not.
Gurman says Apple did what a lot of companies are doing. I'm sure you're doing it at Microsoft. We're doing it at Twit. We had a contest for employees to share photos of their work from home setup. Apple, a little bit different, though. They said, if you're working on anything confidential, please keep it out of the shot. Duh.
Yeah. We have, there's an interesting feature in Teams where you can, I guess, kind of like redact or like hide certain things on your video.
Nice.
And so there've been a couple of calls that I've been on with people who have things that are under, like NDA and
like
can't be discussed.
Like a Duo or a Neo?
I mean, I have no idea what you're talking about, obviously. But those are certain things that they can kind of redact. And so I think that you can see more of that.
Is there a black blob? What do you get?
It basically, it's like it's colored. Like there's like a color on top of it. So it's just like a colored box. So you can't see.
It's almost saying, I would just do it all the time, and say, because then it makes you look, it's high status. Look at all the colored blobs. That guy's got everything. You must really have special access. Speaking of which, I had maybe you could help me out with this, Christina. Very nice lady, Vera, called me up. She said, I can't afford to buy a new computer. Could you use your clout with Microsoft to ask them to keep Windows 7 up to date through the rest of the year due to this crisis? I said, what are you, crazy? I have no clout. I know Christina Warren. Could you do that for us?
I mean,
no, it's okay.
I don't have the clout either. But it does raise an interesting question about like if there are situations where maybe support should be extended.
Yeah,
that I don't know about.
This would be a good reason to keep support going. Although, I just don't see. I imagine in my mind a scenario of me calling my good friend Satya, saying, Satya, do me a favor, do a buddy a service here. Can you just keep supporting Windows 7 to the end of the year. And Satya just laughing me out of the office. It doesn't seem like that's something Microsoft would even consider. I mean, they're doing a lot of other things, but that I don't see happening. According to 9to5Mac, iPhone 9 case inventory is already at Best Buy. Is that what you were doing there?
No, I was getting this.
Oh, okay. What is
Elgato.
That? Oh, that's
it's the
nice.
HD60. Yeah, it's the HD60S, but it's the Plus version, which is important because that means that it can work as a UVC driver on Mac to use your webcam, your DSLR as a webcam on Mac. And it also does 4K pass-through, which the 60S does not. So just a little capture card.
That's cool. So it's a streamer. Just plug it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's neat. Earlier this week, Blackmagic did a kind of just a stream to talk about their products, new products. They said this is not in lieu of NAB, which is closed, but they showed, we have the A10 Mini, which we love. It's just a little $300 four HDMI switcher, perfect for this kind of thing.
I've looked at getting one of those. They're sold out everywhere.
You can't get them. And they announced a new one, $300 more, the Pro version, A10 Mini Pro, that has that streamer built into the switcher. So you can stream directly from the switcher, which is kind of cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah. Apple did something odd this week. They bought a weather app. I'm really curious what you all think of this. I love Dark Sky. It's my
I love it too.
Yeah. Preferred weather app. A few people annoyed because immediately they announced that's it on Android, no more Dark Sky on Android. And they said, and the Dark Sky API will be cut off at the end of 2021. A lot of us use the Dark Sky API. I use it on a lot of different apps. I think Carrot Weather uses it. A lot of them use it.
Yeah, Hello Weather does. Yeah, Carrot Weather. There's a lot of great apps that use it, so it's a bummer.
Dark Sky was, in 2015, a Kickstarter project. They raised,
sure was.
It's kind of funny to look back now, they raised $40,000 to create what they called a hyper-local weather forecasting service. I'm not sure how they're doing hyper-local. They implied there was some use of AI or something.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
Sorry, I got into something on Twitter with somebody this week about that because I send in reports all the time. Like that's part of it is that you can say, what's your weather right now, or if it starts raining or whatever. And someone on Twitter said, well, it never works in real time for me. And I'm like, I don't know if it's just because I always send in reports all the time, but like for the last 2 years or whatever, like it'll give me 5-minute notice without fail.
And it's accurate.
It starts raining.
It's going to rain.
And it's accurate.
That's
now
nice.
It's also I'm here in New York City, so that could be a part of it too.
There's more people reporting in your area.
But
it's like Waze. Waze is more accurate where people use it a lot, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, so by the way, I wanted to say, because this is on 9to5Mac right now, but I was writing up a piece on it for tomorrow before we started. There's new rumors about new home screen appearance options in iOS that people have noticed.
I saw this, and this gets me very excited.
So then put all these things together. Number one, the weather app on iOS has sucked out for months.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly, if we can have widgets on the home screen that are active, put it all together, and I think we can see pieces coming together here.
So yeah, tell me, this is iOS 14. And you have to look at the code. Is this from the leaked code, or is this from an actual beta of 14? This is from the leaked code, isn't it?
It says, screenshot also revealed a new home screen appearance option that is similar to the watch face settings from the Apple Watch app.
So you can have complications on your iPhone.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh. This is one of the things...
There were already dynamic wallpapers coming, right? That leakers had talked about that coming, like stripes that move across the screen.
Well, I have live wallpaper on my iPhone. Apple has some dynamic ones, but maybe they're real time. Like I love the idea of having the planet Earth and the demarcation line moving as it actually moves. That kind of thing.
Yeah, or it might be similar to like what the one that they have on Mac OS, where depending on what time of day it is, it'll get a darker or lighter. So that would be cool. Yeah,
this is one of the things I love about Android. One of the few reasons I would hate to have to give up Android is widgets. The Android, and this is where I think Apple's really behind. They haven't updated Springboard. The last update was folders. I mean, I guess for an iPad you now have the quick look on the left, but it's really pretty much not so much changed since the iPhone came out. And meanwhile, Android, you have multiple third-party launchers available to you. You can put live widgets. You could have a live weather forecast on your desktop. This is the one thing that I think has been missing from the iPhone. I hope this is true, and I would love to see this home screen widgets.
Yeah, it's a shame about...
I think Brian's onto something about the timing of this, with because you figure it's not likely to come out until the fall, right. And so if they they've been probably working together. Typically, these acquisitions come after the team has been working together with Apple. So probably for the last 6 months they've been working together, and Apple sort of decided, you know what, we're going to do some really cool stuff with this, and we like it so much. Why don't we just buy this? And so that makes a lot of sense. And I agree that the sort of I remember the live tiles. That was like the one thing I liked on the Windows Phone was I thought
Wasn't
they did some
that
really
great?
interesting
I
things.
loved that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So right now I'm looking at my iPhone home screen. There is one icon that's live. It's, of course, the clock icon. And that was relatively recent. It actually shows the time. I've seen many people say, gee, I wish the weather icon showed weather. Maybe with Dark Sky now the weather icon should actually show the weather. Oh, and yeah, and the calendar icon shows the date. Yeah. But it doesn't really, they're not real. This is basically a grid of icons. That's not that useful. I'd love to see them do more.
So you 2007.
Yeah, since 2007, a grid of icons. So you think that's why did they buy Dark Sky?
Aside from the fact that, as I said, their weather app is terrible and has been sitting in a crap folder on my iPhone for years now.
Yeah, no, that's a good reason. Yeah.
It uses Weather Channel, and Weather Channel got bought by IBM too. Keep that in mind.
Watson's doing the weather now.
Right, and they probably don't want to use that. They want to have their own. I mean, honestly, the more I think about it, even though to me the biggest shame, like I definitely understand for Android fans why they would be very upset, understandably, for the app going away. For me, the bigger bummer is that the API is going away. However, as we're having this conversation, it strikes me that the API was probably the really valuable part of it here, because I profiled Dark Sky back in 2013. They'd been around for a little over a year at that point, and right after they had kind of announced the API, but I think before anybody had really adopted it. And I thought it was so interesting then that was going to be their business model, was the API. And you've seen a ton of apps and services use it, and they've had their usage model, but I never have gotten the sense that it's been something that's been like spectacularly profitable for them. Like, I think that it's been profitable and they've been able to continue to evolve the app, but it hasn't been one of those like runaway, success things, right? So I could see if you're buying this, the app is beautiful and it has good features, but it's really that API that has the power, especially if you could put it into, your home screen, you could, put it on the Apple Watch, you could use it in these places where these third-party apps that are using the API are already doing really interesting things. Like you mentioned Carrot Weather, and there's some other ones that the reason you would want this is so you can get that real-time information and be able to use it across your devices and platforms. And if it's something that other people could use, I mean, it's kind of terrible for the existing people who've been using the API. At least they get a year and a half or so, to wind down and find another solution. But, it's still, part of me would wish that would remain open to people. But you can also understand why somebody who's buying the company would be like, no, actually, we really like this, and this is what we're going to be just using for our own internal purposes.
Just think of it like Siri or Apple Maps, right? It's another one of these things that it's a pillar that they feel like they need to have as the future part of they want to have deeper integration into the OS. Think about all the things that Weather Touch and does. Yeah, exactly.
There's also, and I keep trying to stir up this controversy, but nobody's buying. But I think there is a controversy with weather in general. Most of the services, including Dark Sky, use weather information from the National Weather Service. And that information has been offered as by the way, most nations have national weather services, and they offer that. It's taxpayer paid, and they offer that information for free. The National Weather Service, I don't think, has an API. So I think what a lot of weather apps do is they take the raw data from the Weather Service, and their meteorologists then create forecasts out of it.
Right. And you used to have Weather Underground, which was kind of anybody could have their own weather station, and that was kind of a collective of third-party information. And then IBM bought that 5 years ago.
Yeah. So there's been, in my mind, there's been this, and John Oliver did a great piece on it last year. There's been a move in the federal government. There's a group of people that want to start charging for NOAA data. Trump failed to take the founder of the Weather Channel, to have him run the National Weather Service. Fortunately, Congress got wind of that and said, "Yeah, no, I don't think so." But there's something going on with weather, and it seems like IBM's making a big play to do its own weather service, basically.
Basically, yeah, because Weather Channel bought Weather Underground first. I just Googled and found that out in 2012, and I remember that. And the Weather Underground community was apoplectic. And then IBM bought Weather Underground, but didn't buy the Weather Channel. But then they bought the Weather Channel, and so IBM is clearly working on something. And I'm from Atlanta, where the Weather Channel it was based. And I actually, when I was in high school, I was friends with a guy who was at Georgia Tech in grad school, who was meteorologist studying that stuff. And he worked at the Weather Channel for many years. And it was really interesting. I mean, this was, close to 20 years ago now, but I remember the conversations being very, very interesting about the stuff that they were doing. But you're right. It's an interesting question about how we have the private sector essentially running, and in some cases, using the public resources around weather, but also in some cases they're creating their own, right? That's kind of the rub, is that they're making investments that the National Weather Service might not be. It's just historically it was smaller companies, more independents, and the Weather Channel has had various ownership structures over the years too. But I think when you see, a giant like IBM buy it, that's when you're like, huh.
I just think it's very fitting that the weather company is a subsidiary of IBM's cloud platform.
That's true. It is.
It's a tangled web, and I just think Apple buying into this is, I mean, it could be very simple. They could say, hey, these engineers are great. It's an acqui-hire. They could say, hey, we want a live weather widget on iOS 14. It could be as simple as that. Or it could be Apple has aspirations to do something more like Apple Maps with weather, and they see IBM coming in here and saying, well, we're going to do weather. I don't know.
Not many people left to buy. The question is, are they going to be a barracuda about it?
Right. Well, that to me, I think is what I'm kind of sort of hopeful for. If there is any kind of hope to be had about this for the third party and indie app companies that use Dark Sky as API, is that the fact that now essentially, two giant tech companies own the biggest kind of, input things, Weather Channel and Dark Sky, this might be an opportunity for a third party to come in, and maybe the data won't be as good at first. Maybe it won't, have the same power in the beginning, but this might be an opportunity for a third party or even kind of an organization to step in and say, okay, we're going to create an alternative that others can use.
Let me correct myself. It's such a tangled web. I always get this wrong. It was the CEO of AccuWeather that Trump had proposed as the executive director of NOAA. That was turned down. Apparently, AccuWeather wants to shut down NOAA. It's a very complicated thing. There's a lot going on. So
it's a tangled web.
There's a good story in this. Journalists out there, somebody needs to write a New Yorker style, big long form piece on the tangled web of weather services. I'm not even joking. I would read the hell out of that.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Who would have thought that could be so, draconian and there'd be so much backstabbing and that in weather.
Well, there's a lot of money in it if you think about it. I mean, agriculture needs to know, especially as it gets to be big agribusiness. It needs to know.
It's the main thing people watch on local television.
It's a very popular thing. Here's a company called Climacell, the Climacell CO, Forget the forecast. Teams use Climacell to reduce daily operating costs and maximize revenue. They have a weather API that's used by Uber, Delta, JetBlue, National Grid, the Patriots, by Ford, by the U.S. Open, by Amazon Web Services. You can imagine weather prediction is pretty important for a lot of businesses.
Well, and then think about the future where you might have climate change becoming a big multi-trillion-dollar effect on the economy every single year. Yeah.
So
no, weather futures is a massive industry for so many things.
So Climacell jumped on this dark sky acquisition and said, well, we got an API. We got an API. So that's going to be very interesting. My guess is their API won't be free, but I don't know. This is their business. They're a Boston company, Climacell.
Yeah, I think the reason the dark sky was appealing to a lot of people was that their API usage terms were pretty reasonable. Whereas some of these other services, I'm sure they exist, but aren't going to exist maybe for people who either have a free or a 99 cents or $1.99, mobile app.
Yeah.
So I think that's the bigger question when you presumably have a bunch of calls going to check those things out. So, but it is, look, take advantage of that. Absolutely. Get your name out there because this is a massive market for climate change, for other things, and for a bunch of different industries. IoT is heavily involved in many cases around, things like agriculture and weather sensors and data around that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Dark Sky does charge Carrot Weather and some of these other small apps for the use of the API, Carrot, and
they charge, but I believe that their fees are fairly reasonable.
It's pay as you go, so they don't have to pay more than they can afford, I guess, is the idea. I'm reading a Fast Company article.
Carrot Weather is the Smart Aleck one, right?
Yeah,
that's like.
There's also Hello Weather, and the founder of Hello Weather says they went. They're prepared to go on without Dark Sky. They chose Dark Sky because it was affordable. But he says, I've been scouting other options for a few months now, although they all have their own individual pros and cons. Weather, who knew? But you're right, with climate change, with increased massive storms coming out of the Gulf and the Caribbean, and there's all of this becomes very important. And so it's interesting. So Brian, you are getting those notifications. It's going to rain in 10 minutes, but you said it doesn't work so well for you in Louisville, Jason.
Oh no, it works here too.
Oh, you get it? Who wasn't that?
Yep.
Maybe.
Oh no, I said it works amazing. It was somebody on Twitter that said that.
Somebody on Twitter
because
said that.
If you set it up the right way, and again, New York City, I don't know, but I can be out in Prospect Park with my kids. I'll get a notification, precipitation starting in 10 minutes. That's enough time to get back to your house, and it you have to hook up to the notifications for your phone. But not only that, if you go into the app, it'll show you like a little waveform that says, it's gonna start raining in about 5 minutes. In about 12 minutes, it's gonna be medium. In about 20 minutes, it's gonna be high. It works for snow. It works for rain. It's sort of like Google was all those years ago. As soon as I got that app, I never had to use anything else. It was perfect.
Yeah. And that's the kind of thing you want to know. You want to know, should I run home? Is it going to rain? You said that Apple might be a barracuda. Is that what you said, Jason? What does that mean? That they're going to eat people up and spit them out?
Right. I was also trying to cue you too. I thought.
I was impressed. Okay. How did you know the next ad was for Barracuda Networks?
I intuited it. I also read
good.
it on the.
Oh, it is. It was. Yeah. Barracuda. Everybody knows Barracuda. Cloud-enabled enterprise-grade security solutions. We've used Barracuda for years. They protect your network, protect your data, your applications, protect your email. Now that so many people are working remotely, email is the #1 vector for taking over your network. And remote employees, without the IT support, without somebody to say, hey, does this look like a phishing email to you, may be more likely to get you in trouble. They're all getting email every day that makes them vulnerable. And as we know, 91% of all cyber attacks start in email. Spear phishing, ransomware, account takeover, conversation hijacking. 91% come through email. Multiply that by how many employees, by how many emails. All it takes is one mistake. It'll cost you money, customers, your reputation. And if it's ransomware, it could even shut you down. Barracuda's researchers have seen a steady increase in the number of coronavirus-related spear phishing attacks. It's so sad. The bad guys are so awful. 667% spike in attacks since the end of February. 667%. They want to get in your network. They want to take over. They want to infect you with ransomware, and they're taking advantage of COVID-19. And your employees, they're home, they're scared. Maybe they're going to click on that email. That's why you need Barracuda Total Email Protection. All-in-one email security, backup, and archiving. It's AI-based protection from spear phishing, from account takeover, from business email compromise. They have an automated incident response that gives you options to quickly and effectively address attacks. And they even have training for your employees so that they know what not to do, what not to click. That's really important. Right now, there are new attacks impersonating organizations like the World Health Organization. So easy for an employee to see that. By the way, I got a lot of this information. Barracuda has an excellent blog, which you should totally check out at barracuda.com. Lots of information there about the threats you're facing. And then while you're there, go to barracuda.com/twit and take a look at their Office 365 email filtering. It's incredible. In fact, right now, if you want to uncover the threats that are sitting in your inbox right now, you can get a secure, free email threat scan of your Office 365 account. No cost, no obligation. Just go to barracuda.com/twit. I bet you'll be amazed at what's lurking in your inbox right now. Barracuda.com/twit. And see how nice and easy the interface is? Barracuda, your journey secured. BARRACUDA. It's really the best known name in security. Barracuda.com/twit. A great solution there. Total email protection for Office 365. Really, really good. And now's the time, man. Don't put this one off. So one of the
trying to do an Odocta move there. That was an Odocta.
That was a good Odocta. I heard the word Barracuda. My ears pricked up. I said, "What? What?" I thought it was a coincidence. Little did I know how smart Jason Heiner is. Jason Heiner is here. He is editorial director at CNET. So good to have Jason, longtime friend, at Jason Heiner on Twitter. Also, it's wonderful to have Brian McCullough, the Tech Meme Ride Home. I don't ride with him anymore, but I do listen every day. And I am going to listen to that new COVID morning report. That sounds great. At
Coronavirus morning report, yes.
Coronavirus, pardon me. At Brian MCC on the Twitter. And, of course, from Microsoft, she's a developer advocate, senior cloud advocate, Christina Warren. Great to have Film Girl here. I feel like I'm just hanging with friends. This is nice. I really appreciate it.
And congrats on 15. I mean, the last 5 have gone really fast, too. I remember 10 at the Brick House.
Yeah.
I was just there.
You had cupcakes.
I don't know. You had cupcakes. I was just there reporting because I was working on my book at the time. Oh, yeah. And so
Can you believe that's been 5 years ago?
I know.
Jeez.
I know. Crazy.
Yeah, I still have. I have my shirt that you sent me. You were kind of sending me a 10-year anniversary shirt because I wasn't able to be there in person. Yeah, that's nuts. That's nuts. I still have that shirt. That's crazy.
I'm going to try to get to 20, and then it's all bets are off. I don't know. But saying I've been doing this for 20 years, that's saying a lot. That's pretty cool. I'm happy to have been doing it for 15. We are going to. Don't expect any shirts or cupcakes this year. We decided to donate the money we would spend for the celebration to relief to our medical and first responders in the area.
That's awesome.
Give them,
good job.
Give them
that's
a
awesome.
little help. So I think that's better to spend the money on right now than
Absolutely.
Cupcakes. Leo shouldn't eat anyway. Are you cooking more at home, guys? Are you doing more? I did a terrible thing last night. A listener sent me his grandma's chocolate cake recipe, and I made it, and then I ate it. Lisa and I are groaning, going, why did we do that? No more chocolate cake. It was so good. I couldn't stop eating it.
I don't cook.
At all?
So, no.
What do
so
you
it's been
eat?
hard. We've been doing a lot of takeout delivery from places that are still doing it, tipping, 50% sometimes, as much as we can to help. And then there are like in microwave things or whatever, but I don't cook. So it's been a challenge, to be totally honest, because
it's an opportunity to learn to cook. This is your chance. You don't want to do that. You don't want to be that. You don't want to be that woman. You don't want.
You're not feeling it.
Yeah.
No, people keep saying that. I'm like, yeah, but see, I've never learned for a reason. Like, it's just something that doesn't matter to me.
You could sing that song. I bring home the bacon, fry it up in a pan. Never ever let you forget you're a man, 'cause I'm a woman. You don't remember that.
No.
You don't live that. No, That was from the old days. That was the most sexist, horrible ad ever. But it's in my mind. You can't get rid of it. I like to cook. I love to cook, but I got to stop baking because that's a bad habit. Bad habit.
I do like to bake. That I do enjoy, but I haven't done that either. Not yet.
Nope. Don't get started. Everybody's making sourdough. It's the funniest thing.
That's what I was going to say. Everyone's making bread. I'm like, okay, I don't have patience for that.
There's no yeast available. There's no sugar available.
That's why you have to. Yeah. But you don't need yeast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just find something for your starter or whatever. Yeah, I was going to say, I see that all over my Twitter, and I'm like, that's great. Don't have the time or the patience for this. Animal Crossing is enough right now. So.
If you make a starter, apparently the thing is to name it. The New York Times cooking columnist has named her starter Yeast Witherspoon.
That's good.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. All right, let's get back to the tech news. That was a little break. A little break from the tech news. This actually, and we're going to get heavy again, but The Intercept and others have had lots of articles about the threat posed now by the fact that we're all trying to, beat this virus. And so we're looking at location apps and using location information to fight it, which is, of course, a good idea. And yet there's always this risk that when you do that, you open Pandora's box. I mean, let's not forget that it was after 9/11 that the Patriot Act was passed that gave the government unprecedented powers to snoop on us. And is it still in effect? Oh, yeah. Almost 20 years later, it's still in effect. So
the emergency powers that are still.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm going to see if I can find that article by Sam Biddle in The Intercept, because it might be in the rundown, but I can't see.
I got the link. If I could send
that's
it.
All right. Go ahead. You can read from it or talk about it.
Yeah. So the point that I took away from it was, this is Mohammed Tajar, or however that's pronounced, but he's with the ACLU of Southern California. His point was that you could have data-driven approaches to tracking the pandemic, but what would be a good idea is to, before you start doing it, have limits built in place.
Yes.
And then require justifications every step of the way, so that, all right, here are the parameters for how we will use data from Facebook. We will use data from Google and your cell phone and all that stuff. But every time you go beyond parameter 1 to parameter 2 to parameter 3, you have to justify it in the same way that, the police have to go to a court and justify, increased surveillance and things like that.
Yes, Lawn Dog saying in our chat room, never let a good crisis go to waste. Here's our opportunity. South Korea, Taiwan, and Israel, they're using smartphone location data to enforce quarantines of individuals. Moscow police say they've already busted 200 quarantine violators caught via face recognition-enabled cameras. NSA contractor Palantir is helping Britain's National Health Service track infections. Apps that leverage a smartphone's bounty of built-in highly accurate sensors to enforce social distancing or map the movements of the infected have been deployed in Singapore, Poland, Kenya. In Mexico, Uber sent government authorities rider data. Apparently they had an infected tourist, and then the person who drove the tourist, they tracked all 240 users who had taken a ride with that driver, so that the Mexican authorities could notify them all, you may have been exposed, self-quarantine. All of this sounds good, but it does highlight how much location information we're all giving up all the time. And
and then this week, the stories that were coming out that in the U.S., the municipalities that are using it, that have started to use it in recent weeks, the reason that they're able to use it is because they're going to the ad companies and the ad brokers, because there's no laws in place for what they can and cannot do with them.
They have so much information.
And so that data is just sitting there. So you're starting to get municipalities going to them because they're in the business of selling that data anyway.
Yeah, and as Bob says in our chat room, I'd opt into tracking for public health in a heartbeat. This is a great benefit. And maybe could help us end this quarantine faster and do it more effectively, right? And after quarantine, we've got to think about, well, the virus is still going to be out there and potent for at least another year and a half until we get a vaccine. How do we track infections and shut them down so that we don't have to all go into quarantine? All of this can be enabled by this kind of location information.
And some of the apps that are already doing it in those other countries, again, it's a thing where, you turn on Bluetooth. Let's say everyone has an app. We agree to it. We say, for the course of this pandemic, I will turn on the coronavirus test and trace app, right? And then it would run over Bluetooth so that it would keep track of other phones that you come into contact with within, say, 6 feet or whatever. So that then if you are tested and you come down with it, then and only then, and that gets into the point of having these guardrails in place, then they could go and see, well, Leo was within 6 feet of these 72 people over the last week, and so let's go test them.
I think that's
a good thing. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I understand also the concern. These are the suggestions Sam makes in his article. Health officials must drive data decisions. It can't come from government. Oh, we think this is a good idea.
Yeah.
It should come from health officials trying to do the right thing for health. Coronavirus-related surveillance must be clearly justified against the costs. Data collected should expire. There shouldn't be just, oh, hey, we got all this data, let's keep it. And it should be walled off. It should be treated like the U.S. Census is currently treated, as privileged information, not to be used by other agencies, not to be used to arrest people or to find undocumented immigrants, things like that. I think these are absolutely good points raised. And normally The Intercept is maybe a little bit more to the left-leaning than I like. But I think in this case, I think these are things we have to really pay attention to.
I think the core point from Mohammed Tajsar from the ACLU there is really critical. It's just that governments tend to make these requests with it just kind of like, okay, let's take that data, right? And once they acquire the data, then it becomes privileged government information where all of a sudden somebody else wants to use the data for something else. And they're like, we've got that data. We can go look at that to figure this out. And it's like, no, that's not what, nobody's there to say, oh no, that wasn't what we originally got that data for. Right. They just now look at it as like, we now have the access to this, so we're going to use it for all these other things that we might want to use it for. And that's the key thing to make sure does not happen in something like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's my big concern is that, just history is borne out as we're all kind of discussing, that anytime you ever give any institution, government or otherwise, additional access, and it's just for a short period of time, like they don't like to give that access back. And as trying and as we're all in panic and these are like extraordinary times and they cause for extraordinary measures, that has to be balanced with we can't give up our civil liberties and some of the core parts of what makes America simply because we're in this time, because we will, as the Patriot Act is a great example, we will never get those powers back. And we have to look at what are the opportunities to do this within the systems that we have in place, because there are opportunities. It might be easier if certain things are suspended, but that doesn't mean that it's impossible. So, I think I'm going to err on the side of civil liberties every day of the week. Similar to the few weeks back, there were reports of them wanting to do, some tracking about, where people's activities are to try to aid in stopping the spread. And it's like, that's a great idea. I don't want the government being aided by Facebook or Google or anybody else tracking my location, no matter what they say the reason is. Like, I don't want that, Well, that's not the country we live in.
Google released that thing this week where they're showing, and it's completely anonymized and all that stuff, but showing the amount of visits to parks and things like that and groups and things. I mean, the problem is this is I agree with everything that everyone has said in terms of the civil liberties concern, the government power concerns. But at the same time, in the same way that, in 1919 or whenever the Spanish flu thing happened, they didn't even understand fully things like antibiotics and vaccines and stuff. We have the advantage right now of, if the problem is testing and tracing and tracking contacts with people, we happen to have the perfect tool because everyone is carrying around supercomputers in their pockets. So that there has to be some way to take advantage of the fact that for the first time in human history, we have the perfect tools in everybody's pocket to stop an epidemic, to trace an epidemic, that there has to be some way to do it and not let this perfect tool go to waste. And I agree with all the concerns, but at the same time, it's like your house is on fire and you're standing there with a bucket of water.
I don't want to use it. I might need to drink it sometime. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I agree with what you're saying, but if that were true, and I think we have these ways to track people. I mean, when we look at the countries that have responded and have managed to, contain things the right way, they haven't gone that far into that level of surveillance. Now they have other
Singapore has, and there's a couple of other South Korea. I don't know if they're using, but I believe Singapore has one of those apps that something like 600,000 people have downloaded. Again, sorry, it's because I've been doing a podcast on this every day for 3 weeks. But
you're an expert. Yeah.
The counterbalance is, no way, I'm not an expert. I just read all the things. The counterbalance is, there's another country whose the identity eludes me right now, that they've encouraged. I think it's one of the countries in the Middle East. They created their own app, encouraged all of their population to download it. And when security researchers looked at it, it was one of those apps where it's like, oh yeah, also it's going to grab all of your messages, all of your photos and everything. Right. So yes.
But this is my point, is that even Singapore, it's not a requirement right now, if I know correctly, right?
That's true. That's true.
So, yes. And I would also posit that the Singapore government is very different from the U.S. government in terms of, there are a lot of reasons why they've been more ahead of this than we have, and one of them is that it's strictly a place where people listen to the government and follow rules more, and because they know that the government will take action. It's very different from our country. But I guess my point was going to be, even those places that have done this, it hasn't been like it's become kind of like a requirement. So I look and I'm like, is this necessary right now? Because I would argue that part of the reason that Singapore has been so much better at it has nothing to do with the app. It has everything to do with, their system of government, which definitely.
Let me do one more real quick devil's advocate for you, because Leo and I were talking about this before we started recording, which is, all right, if we want to, by the summer, get people back to work, some people back to work. Leo and I were talking about the second half of it, which is, in theory, if people contract the disease and recover from it, they might be immune for a period of time. So those people can start to go back to work. But all of us sitting at home that haven't contracted it, to send people back out into the workforce, you're going to need some sort of a situation where you can monitor those people. So what if it was a situation where they said, Christina, you can come back into the office as long as you download this app. Maybe it's done through Microsoft or whatever, so there's layers of protection. But it's like some sort of a situation where if in the office an outbreak happens, or someone in July comes down with it after people have cautiously gone back to work, well, then we can immediately lock down that section of Microsoft and allow the rest of Microsoft to continue working. I'm just saying that there has to be some way, once the sheltering in place regime hopefully ends sometime soon, because inevitably there's going to be flare-ups again. And so there has to be some way to set up a system to immediately seal off, like a leaking ship, those areas where flare-ups occur.
And I don't disagree with that. I think my response to that would be that I'm in favor of that, but I would wonder if the better response isn't an app, but getting widespread testing and getting widespread antibody testing.
Agree. And this is what I'm saying. It's all part and parcel. It's a combination of things, because even in a best case scenario, and this would be a best case scenario, that some small percentage of the population gets it as opposed to 70%. The idea of people going back to work has to be, I want to be safe. I'm not willing to go back to work until you can start to give me assurances that in your WeWork or whatever, if that wing of the WeWork someone had got reinfected or something like that, that you could know that within hours. You could begin to like send people home within hours. So I'm saying that, again, there are tools that we have today that we've never had before that would allow some of us and some large portion of us to start to get back to life as normal. But that also includes non-technical things, like maybe we need to have people outside of every office just testing temperatures and things like that.
Right. I mean, I would just say that I guess my fear is that we're immediately going to this place of using surveillance and technology to try to contain this when we aren't even doing in the United States the basic things that we need to do, which is testing. And until you have widespread testing and testing over and over again. So it's not just one of those things where you've been tested once, but, testing people repeatedly. And we don't have that. We don't have that infrastructure. Like, to me, that makes more sense. And if you want to use technology to aid with getting people tests, I'm all about that. But I'm concerned about some of these other reaches, just because I think you give access to that information, you're never going to get it back ever. It's like the Dark Knight. It's like he made Lucius like destroy the tool because it was too powerful. It's that same sort of thing. It's like, once you have that, I don't care how caring and how good the intentions are of any company or government, they're not going to give up that access. They're just not.
It's interesting too that in all of this, we're starting to understand a little bit better how companies are tracking us and keeping that information. There's a company called Unicast that's business is selling location information, which they collect from a variety of apps and so forth. They've actually made a social distancing scoreboard. They know so much about people's locations that you can actually go look and see how your county is doing. Let's see how New York is doing in social distancing. New York County, New York. Oh, good. You guys are doing well. A-.
I don't know. Look out my window right now.
You see a lot of people out there. Well, apparently,
you got to look up King County. Kings County would be New York County. That's Manhattan. Kings County looks like A- too. So that's good.
It doesn't help that I'm a block away from the park too, so people are still heading out for their runs.
But let me give you one more. A- as well. But let me show you. By the way, you would think, out here in the country, we're probably doing really well. We're a C-. You guys are doing a better job. In reducing.
Well, can I give you one more argument about using data? So
this is interesting, though. I guess that's my point. Is we're now learning a little more about how much Unicast knows. It's a valuable and interesting map, but at the same time, Unicast. Wow, who knew these guys knew all this stuff?
Which I think it's fine. They already have this information. But
where'd they get it?
Well, the same way that they can get other things. And probably services on your cell phone. What I'm opposed to is having more information that we're not already giving. Like that's what I'm opposed to, is giving more access.
Right.
Are you guys aware of the Kinsa Smart thermometer?
I use it. I love the Kinsa.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've seen their maps as well.
Yeah. The health.
And that's another example of, that's data that we didn't know that they were keeping. And then
we did. No, that's not true. Kinsa has been handing out these thermometers. They have over 1 million of them out there to schools for precisely this purpose. It's anonymized data. There's no way of knowing which thermometer is owned by anybody. But before COVID, it was about flu. But it's very valuable information. So see here, it even says influenza-like illness near you. You can see what's typical, atypical trends. So you can see where the hot spots are and observed. And this is based on thermometers they've been handing out. I actually went out and bought one, partly because I wanted to take my temperature with a Bluetooth-enabled thermometer every day. But also, I'm glad to help. In fact, they've tied into the University of California at San Francisco. So every day, I think it's UCF. No, who are they tied in with? I can't remember. Is it UCSF? Say again? Aura. That's right. My Ring is tied with them with UC. This also is measuring my temperature. I have temperature measurements all over the place. But this is kind of cool. So I actually have a timeline of my temperatures. Now, unfortunately, unlike influenza, COVID has a lot of asymptomatic cases. We don't know how many. But, this is some valuable information as well. And you can even see how we get a better report card here if I look at Sonoma County, because we have flattened the curve, at least according to temperature readouts. If I look at the graph here, this is normal for this time of year with influenza, and we're well below that, well below normal because of social distancing. Nobody's getting the flu or.
Oh, there's tons of data about that. How, of course, not only is the normal flu down because nobody's out spreading it, car accidents are down. There's a whole bunch, like the overall normal death rate. Crime in New York is way down. Yeah. There's all sorts of things that are not happening.
The air is clear. The fish have returned to the Bellagio fountain. Everything is better when people stay home. Gas prices are at historic lows. Anyway, this one I don't have a problem with, Kinsa, because A, when you get it, they say this is what's going to happen. The data is anonymized. There's no way of knowing. It's your thermometer. And B, they've been doing this for years. This is actually a very interesting public health effort from Kinsa. So, hey, if you know COBOL, good news. New Jersey wants to hire you. Apparently, the New Jersey financial assistance software runs on, this is from the Register, of course, creaking mainframes. And Governor Phil Murphy is looking for people who know COBOL, because he called it Cobalt, computer skills, because that's what we're dealing with in these legacies. We have systems that are 40-plus years old. There'll be lots of postmortems. One of them on our list will be, how the heck did we get here where we literally need COBOL programmers?
This is really funny. You mentioned, Leo, that I used to work with in enterprise with Tech Republic. And I remember in 2001, we did this story. It was one of our most popular stories of the year, was like the hottest skill of 2001. And this was almost like a joke. Was COBOL programming, because there were all these old government systems that hadn't, modernized. And so there weren't enough people that still knew the language to actually keep them running. And they had no plans to, make them obsolete and move them to new systems. This was in 2001, and it was sort of like this joke.
Oh yeah,
right? Yeah.
No, it's so funny. My late aunt, she was an engineer at CSX, and she was in very, very high demand in around the year 2000 because she knew COBOL, and they were having to fix all those systems. Right. And I think that she did ultimately. I think she moved to Java, but she was still. I mean, you're exactly right, Jason. Like 20 years ago, we were having this conversation about we've got to update these systems. And it just, nope. If you know COBOL, there's always going to be a place for you, I think, is the lesson.
It's kind of amazing. But, honestly, I understand.
If it works, why are you going to mess with it?
Yeah. And, you don't want some hotshot consultant to come in and say, all you need is 4 IBM PCs and you can replace that mainframe. I don't know.
There are a lot of these systems like this in government. And it's not just COBOL. There's some other these outdated systems that it would cost, in some cases, often hundreds of thousands of dollars to upgrade to get the same capabilities that they already have. Nothing new, no added features, no anything.
That's hard to sell, isn't it?
Hundreds of thousands of dollars to just get the exact same stuff on modern architecture.
And the problem is,
you're almost never going to justify it.
Yeah, and the problem is, even if you did get it exactly the same, there are sometimes there are bugs maybe that were written around in that program that if you then, modernize it, go away. And what are the repercussions there? I mean, I can totally understand why for places that have budgets where they wouldn't want to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to get the exact same thing, which from their perspective is well, it's working, why do this? But also from the perspective, you don't know what the potential ramifications are of making this upgrade. Right. I think in general, it's probably a good idea to try to at a certain point, assess your legacy systems and look at how do we modernize the whole thing, and you can amortize the cost more easily. But it's certainly not one of those things where a lot of people are going to have that budget to do it. And I can see why it would keep getting pushed, to the side every single year. Okay, we could spend a few $100,000 doing this or updating something,
It's like there was a school district that's entire HVAC system is running on an Amiga.
Yes, exactly. That's the one where I will say I love that, but there are things you see too where things are running on OS 2 and you're like, okay. There's a certain point where some of the OS stuff I'm like, okay, we might not be able to find this hardware ever again. And you worry about that, and maybe you can't virtualize it in a way that would work. But that aside, if it's something like a programming language, as long as hopefully there will be people who still know COBOL or learning it just for the fun of it. I mean, hey, look, we're all inside. Good opportunity, right? Let's just learn some COBOL. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe that'll be my coronavirus project.
This is Grand Rapids, Michigan public school system. This story from 2015. They're still running their entire HVAC on this little Amiga in a closet somewhere. You know what? It fits the job. It fits the purpose. It's pretty funny, though, I have to say. Hey, let's take a little break. When we come back, lots more to talk about. One more thing I should mention. If we're going to mention COBOL, let's not forget who wrote COBOL, the late Admiral Grace Hopper, one of the great computer programmers of our time, and a woman, and the woman who also was the first person to use the word bug in relationship to a computer program. Our show today brought to you by ExtraHop, another new sponsor, but one that everybody's going to want to know about, because as we're starting to work from home, if everything moves up into the cloud, you need to protect yourself. ExtraHop is a threat monitoring system that keeps an eye on your business, on your cloud, and helps you detect threats and performance issues. You'll discover them up to 95% faster and respond 60% more efficiently. Complete visibility, every asset in real time and at scale. And this is the kind of information you really need to know. You've got people working at home. You've got data in the cloud. You've probably got some stuff on-prem at the office. It's all over the place, but ExtraHop can keep track of everything that's going on in your network everywhere. Secure your hybrid enterprise wherever it is today, wherever it's going tomorrow. Detect new, rogue, and unmanaged IoT devices. It's a good thing you got ExtraHop. See everything in your cloud, everything in the data center, everything in your customer's home. ExtraHop keeps your business safe and available at any scale. Wizards of the Coast uses it to secure and support their AWS cloud with ExtraHop. Their chief architect, Dan McDaniel, I have a quote from him: "There is no other company that aligns to supporting the DevOps model, the speed, and the lack of friction than ExtraHop." That's because ExtraHop comes from that culture. The Home Depot uses ExtraHop to manage and secure nearly 2,300 remote sites. Yes, the point of sale, absolutely. They say no data set is more complete and accurate than what ExtraHop delivers. No matter how complex your network, no matter how hybrid, no matter where your employees, your cash registers, your devices are, ExtraHop gives you eyes into what's going on. And you always know you could take control of your cloud security with ExtraHop. Rise above the noise. Check it out at extrahop.com/twit. You can get a full product demo at extrahop.com/twit. No charge, no obligation. They also have lots of information there, white papers and other valuable stuff on securing and supporting remote access, because that's one of the things we're all dealing with right now. Cloud native network detection and response. ExtraHop. Love these guys. extrahop.com/twit. And we welcome to the Twit family. I think this is their first ad on the network. Good job, ExtraHop. This is the time for you. This is the time to check it out. extrahop.com/twit. Speaking of the cloud, let's talk a little bit about Amazon. Remember, they said they were going to hire 100,000 new employees. They already hired 80,000 workers, including a member of our Twit family. I'll hide his name here, because I don't want him to get in trouble. He said, "I'm actually working at his Amazon warehouse at the moment." He posted this in our Twit community forums. "With our business closed and extra time, I noticed Amazon is advertising for jobs like crazy. I always wanted to see how the warehouses work and if they're as bad as the news suggests. So I applied for a temporary part-time position." And he says there are lots of things in place to keep the warehouse workers safe. They have to keep 2 meters apart everywhere. Lots of cleaning of handles, doors, tables in the canteen. Cleaning the scanner and arm computer. That's the thing you wear on your arm as you're doing the pick. Only 1 person per table in the canteen. Shift times are staggered to stop everyone arriving at the same time. When I signed in this morning to my scanner, I was asked some questions about from Amazon about if the safety measures were being obeyed and that we were made and helped to keep 2 meters apart, which I felt good about. He said there are a few little gaps. It's actually worth reading the whole post. I really appreciate the post. He mentioned that the sign-in pen was being shared, and then he updated it a couple of days ago. It says, no more sharing the sign-in pen. Somebody scans us in and out from a distance now. So they don't have to sign in anymore with a manual pen. So I think that's kind of good news. Amazon workers, though, did go on a strike. You may remember this, and you probably saw the story, kind of a shocking story, that the guy who led the strike, Chris Smalls, was fired, but Amazon said, oh, no, we fired him because he violated quarantine rules. Kind of convenient. And then you might have seen the internal notes an Amazon lawyer was taking at a meeting suggesting how they could use PR by calling the guy dumb and and kind of it does not reflect well on Amazon. Let's put it that way.
No.
Inarticulate was the word.
Inarticulate.
Inarticulate. Oh God. I mean, that's such a dog whistle in such a terrible way. And Amazon's culture, from what I understand, is very write heavy, where people write things a lot. You know, they take notes a lot. It's very driven by writing and communications, and so it's interesting to me that this is one of the first times that I can recall that we've seen a leak of these sorts of meeting notes released in the public like this. And yeah, to your point, does not reflect well at all. No matter.
And Jason Del Rey also had a leak of, I think it was yesterday, some internal Amazon messaging between employees, that them saying, you know, if this is the sort of stuff that leadership is doing, like, what are we even doing here? So I agree with you, Christina. It's the first time that I've seen, you know, we've seen this happen in other big tech companies, but it's the first time we've started to see leaks from the Amazon rank and file and faithful that are like, we do not approve of what is being done in our name here.
Vice got leaked meeting notes from Amazon's general counsel, David Zapolsky, talking about Chris Smalls, he's not smart or articulate, and to the extent the press wants to focus on us versus him, we will be in a much stronger PR position than simply explaining for the umpteenth time how we're trying to protect workers if we just put him up in front of the microphone. Let them talk to him. The PR strategy is to make Smalls the face of the entire union organizing movement because he's not smart or articulate. Now, admittedly, it's a private meeting. People might write things they would never say out loud. But, geez.
No, absolutely. But, I mean.
Zapolsky, in a statement to Vice, said, my comments were personal and emotional. I was frustrated and upset that an Amazon employee would endanger the health and safety of the other Amazonians. I let my emotions draft my words and get the better of me. Yeah. On the other hand, he was also an organizer, not a union organizer, but an organizer, and organized a strike. Instacart says the strike against Instacart on Monday didn't hurt their business at all. Instacart, the pickers and delivery folks for Instacart were saying, we need hazard pay, we need face masks, we need wipes. Maybe it didn't hurt their business, but Instacart by the end of the week had provided additional pay and the materials that the workers wanted. So sometimes these things get the job done. It's a tough time, and it's tough for everybody who's out of work. You know, we're with you. You have my deepest sympathy. This is the time when the cracks and the inequalities in the American economic system rear their ugly head, because so many people I know are no longer working in restaurants or salons or service businesses. They're home travel agents. It's a difficult time right now, and I don't know what the answer is. South by Southwest was called off in Austin. Amazon is going to show a virtual film festival for the films that didn't get shown at South by Southwest. It'll be a virtual film festival on Amazon Prime. I think that's kind of fun. People are watching a lot more TV than they used to. Filmmakers.
Yeah, I think this is great.
Yeah, they were notified and given a chance to opt in. It'll be a 10-day run sometime later this month, according to a South by press release. The festival will be free to U.S. audiences on Amazon Prime Video. You do not have to be a Prime member. You'll just have to have a free Amazon account. And the filmmakers will be paid a screening fee, even though you won't be paying anything. Nice.
Yeah, I like that. And, honestly, I mean, it's nice that it's free, but I'm hoping that for some of the other film festivals, Tribeca, there's some other ones kind of coming up that they will embrace the full kind of, virtual thing. Tribeca has done that to a certain extent over the years, but not for the whole slate, because there are plenty of people like me who will pay. Like, I'd be happy to pay, what a cost of a pass would be to enjoy those things online, to still support the filmmakers. Like, I don't need it to be free just because it's online streaming. Like, that's not a concern. Like, I'd be happy to support their work. So I hope that other film festivals, as they start to explore being online, like, you can charge for this stuff. It's great if Amazon wants to step up and do a partnership and is still going to give the filmmakers a fee. But I mean, you can still charge for these things. The audience of people who go to film festivals and who see movies, like most of us, I think we genuinely want to support the arts. And just because we can't go outdoors doesn't mean that we're not still willing to pay for that.
Yeah. Certainly we're watching a lot more TV. I walked downtown yesterday, walked by the movie theater, which of course is shuttered. And it was kind of sad to see all these posters. They have the display boxes all the way around the theater for movies that will never open in the theaters, but now are being shown streaming for $20 to rent. I don't know. Is that a reasonable thing for a film company to do? We're not going to be able to release the Trolls World Tour, so let's offer it for rent at $20. It's still cheaper than the ticket price. I think so. Yeah.
I think so. I mean, I think that there's a big question to be asked about, because I worry very much about the future of distributors after all of this is over, meaning or exhibitors. Sorry.
Movie
I worry about distributors too, but exhibitors, I worry about. Absolutely. And their margins are already thin. They've already been, pushed. They're already getting less percentage from the studios than they used to. They have rents, they have employees. And my fear genuinely is that if you get rid of the exhibitors, a big portion of the entire economy around Hollywood goes away that I don't think people are quite ready to embrace. I think everyone thinks, it can just go online, not realizing that there's a whole long tail that's involved in that where, yes, Netflix spends $15 billion a year on entertainment, but that's still a fraction of what the global box office is. Yeah. So I worry very much about the exhibitors. Having said that, I do think that in times like this, for certain films, it certainly makes sense to say is $20 for a rental, because to your point, if you're a family and that's Trolls 2, that's going to be the audience, $20 is going to be less than the price of everybody going out and getting tickets. So, and if you need kind of a distraction or whatnot, that's a good way to do it. But at the same time, I think, I don't know how successful it will be for other types of films, because there are certain audiences who will pay $20 for the rental. And then there are certain audiences who won't, because they will just say, well, I'm just going to wait for it to either, come out so I can buy it, or come to one of the services that I subscribe to. So I think that's what they're going to figure out, what the actual, I guess, demand is of people willing to do that, because they've done day and date releases. I think Steven Soderbergh first did a day and date release with Bubble in like 2006. Yeah. And I think that was with video on demand on Comcast and some of the other cable providers. So this has been something we've been doing for almost 15 years.
What is going to happen? Not that anybody cares. The Academy Awards have become such a joke, but I guess it's still important. What's going to happen this year in the Academy Awards? Some of these movies will never be exhibited in the theaters. According to their rules, you have to exhibit in the theater.
Right. I was going to say they're going to have to change the rules
for this year.
They're going to have to, right?
They're going to have to.
Independent movie theaters are looking at new ways to make money during this shutdown. There's an independent chain in Los Angeles, Alamo Drafthouse, one of my favorite independent theaters, Film Forum, and Angelica are trying out. Yep. Angelica, is that how you pronounce it? Are trying out streaming, even though the risk is you stream these movies. And maybe people say, hey, this is a pretty good experience. I guess I don't have to go to the Alamo Drafthouse anymore.
I don't think that. I think once this is over, especially, people are going to be so stir crazy from having
We're
been
going to flock
in.
to the theaters.
People are going to love the chance to get out. And that's why theaters have always been. And to be fair, the theaters over the last few years have been really smart, right? They've started doing more food options. They've made the comfortable chairs. So there's fewer seats, but the seats are more comfortable.
One of the first was Alamo, right? Where you can get a taco and a beer.
Yep.
I went to Alamo in Austin.
Yep.
I said, my God, this is amazing. They've opened one in San Francisco now. And I'm sure there's one in Brooklyn, right? There's got to be.
There is, yep,
Yeah, there's one in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
There aren't any in Seattle, unfortunately. The closest we have is Cinerama, which Paul Allen helped restore, and it has one of the most state-of-the-art like digital screening systems, laser aligned and really good sound system. And they have a slightly different model from Drafthouse and some of the others in that they only play, because there are only 2 screens, so they only have certain or might actually only be 1 screen. They play things for limited time, periods, select big releases, and then they have like a catalog of older things. And something like that, I think, will be okay. Alamo Drafthouse will be okay. I think more about like, okay, what about your average Regal or AMC?
Yeah, AMC,
or,
which was already on
Karma.
the rocks,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, because
AMC's,
Yeah.
They've got a credit problem, as this chat room rightfully noted. They're going to have to. I mean, their CEO, I think, said this week that they're hoping that they can reopen by mid-June, and I think that's them sort of signaling that if it lasts longer than mid-June, they're going to be in trouble. They may actually go under, and this is going to be a challenge for a lot of businesses. I think, as you kind of alluded to earlier,
half the restaurants
Leo.
in this country will be gone. They have no resources to survive this. There are small business loans that can potentially be forgiven if you lose money, but they're hard to get because the banks aren't getting information about how to apply these loans. And the Wall Street Journal had an article this week about how difficult it is to figure out where to get the loan and how it works and all of that stuff.
And we don't know how long this is lasting. So it's like, okay, you get a loan for X period of time, but you don't know.
If I have to pay it back in 3 months, I'm still in trouble, right?
Right. Or if my loan is only going to cover, X amount of rent or an X amount of bills and runway, like what are we going to do?
The idea of the loan is good, though, because it's contingent on you retaining your staff, paying them. So it's a way of kind of trickling that money down to the people who need it the most, the workers. So I think that's not a bad thing. I think it's going to be very challenging. Here's the Alamo Drafthouse's website introducing virtual cinema at the Alamo Drafthouse. And you're right. They're going to succeed. They're going to continue because they're so unique. They have
a brand.
They got a great
brand.
Experience. It's an experience. Yep. Yeah.
They were one of the first to really leaned in on the fact that they were going to make, going to the movies an experience and do it in a certain way. And that's hard, if not impossible, to scale. Even as AMC and others have invested, it's just, it's different.
Right.
There is already a chart going around that where in China that they've relaxed the social distancing stuff, like all of a sudden it just ripped right back up. Everyone went back to the movie theaters. Yeah. But then at the same time, you've seen all of the Marvel movies and all of the big tentpole movies move back to the winter because those are the things that are guaranteed to bring people back to the theater. It is kind of, even though we're saying that the Alamo Drafthouse has it's an event, or it's more of an experience. You can go and you can get food, but
you're not going to see a Marvel movie there. That's for sure.
Exactly. Right. So then the problem is it's what the problem has been with Hollywood for the last couple of years. It would be a smaller movie, a $20 million budget movie, a period piece movie where, people have already been starting to say, well, I just wait for that to come when I can watch it at home anyway.
Yes.
So if I was one of these indie theaters, why not? Like, I've got the print, like set up a camera and let people stream it. Who cares?
No, agreed. I mean, it's going to be interesting just to see, like, how are they going to, what's the first studio who's going to step in and shut that down is my question, and say, you're violating the terms of this or whatever. Like, who's going to be the first one to shut it down? And it's interesting. It was 5 years ago now, but I gave a keynote at CinemaCon, which is the annual conference, takes place in Vegas for the exhibition industry.
Also called off this year.
also called off this year. And that was a really interesting experience for me, both speaking there and also kind of attending in a little bit of a different way. I'd attended a couple years before.
That's pretty cool that they asked you to speak at that. What were you talking about?
Actually, using social media and new media to get people into theaters was
awesome.
What I was talking about.
That was very smart of them to ask you to do that. That's great.
It was actually. Yeah. I have to give them a lot of credit for being that forward thinking. And it was interesting though, because I was talking to a lot of the smaller chains, and we think about like the big chains, but there are all these smaller theaters in places too. And I worry about their future because like Alamo Drafthouse and some of the ones who are going to go off the beaten path, the indie ones, like I think they're going to find a way. But this is, as we've all are kind of discovering with this crisis, with this pandemic, is that so many parts of our world are all interconnected within one another. And one thing falls apart, it has a cascading effect.
Yeah.
So I certainly hope that the movies can come back, but because it's my favorite thing. But it'll be interesting to see how it'll happen and right. what that will mean for the larger industry.
I want to take a little break, and then we have to spend a little time asking everybody what they're watching, because I'm curious, what shows you're watching. So we'll take a little break, come back and do that. Actually, every time Film Girl's on, I asked her what I should watch. So you're probably ready for this. I presume it's not the Gilmore Girls. It's not. It's something else. Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
it is something else.
We have a brand new show we're very excited about. Ant Pruitt has launched something he calls Hands-On Wellness.
This is Twit.
Hey everyone, I'm Ant Pruitt, and this is Hands-On Wellness. Fitness is a big part of my life, and every week, this podcast will cover the intersection of tech and personal wellness. This is not a workout podcast, where I'm a drill sergeant demanding 400 push-ups from you. Instead, I'll review and demo the latest tech that can lead you down the path of a healthier lifestyle. I'll look at gadgets such as fitness trackers, exercise tech, apps, and more. Folks, we have to take our personal wellness more seriously. I'm going to challenge you to do just that. So head over to our website, twit.tv/how, or subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcatcher of choice. I look forward to helping you meet your wellness and health goals.
That's exciting. Twit.tv/how.
Awesome.
Isn't that perfect timing? We had been planning it for a while.
Love it.
Yeah, and he's a perfect guy to do it. He's all about this stuff. I am going to persuade him to let me come on with my brand new sewing machine and show you how to make masks. And sourdough. I'll do it at the same time. It'll be together. Our show today,
Masks and sourdough.
Masks and sourdough. It's all about wellness. Our show today brought to you by the way, twit.tv/how. Subscribe. Our show today brought to you by FreshBooks. I love FreshBooks. They saved my bacon many years ago when I was a freelancer, and they could do the same for you. Tax time. Yeah, we got a little extra time. It's not too late to start using FreshBooks to keep track of income, assets, expenses, all of that. Yes, you can do your accounting with FreshBooks, but it all starts with invoices. It's the easiest way to make professional-looking invoices with your logo on it, to keep track of what you're doing. And by the way, FreshBooks, with everything that's going on in the world, wants you to know you're not alone. These guys are such sweet guys. Isolation is something that many small business owners are feeling always, and with today's situation, it's even more apparent. And we know that's why we want you to take a look at FreshBooks to help your work from home process or transition be smooth. You can download the app today, freshbooks.com/twit, freshbooks.com/twit. It lets you keep tabs on your business anywhere, anytime with that FreshBooks app on your phone. It's awesome. You can create client profiles, enable automation for recurring invoices. You can watch as FreshBooks automatically combines expenses, billable time, and other items into invoices to send clients on your behalf. You can use their accounting and reporting tools to file your taxes, evaluate your financials. Look, as times get tough, every penny counts. It's really important. It's not like the days when you could just say, hey, I'm sure I'm doing fine, I'm making money. You got to pay attention to this stuff, and now is the time. FreshBooks makes it easy. 24 million people have used FreshBooks, 4.5 out of 5 stars on GetApp. I love it. It saved my life. It lets you focus on what you love, the reason you started your business, by saving you time on the stuff you don't love, the paperwork, invoicing, expensing, tracking your hours. FreshBooks saves users on average almost 200 hours a year. By the way, it makes it easier to collect, too. You can stop chasing after money your clients owe you, because in the invoice, you'll be able to take online payments. And it turns out if it's easy for clients to pay you, they're more likely to pay you faster, on average, twice as fast. You'll receive notifications when clients open your invoice so they can't say, hey, I didn't see it. And FreshBooks will automatically send late payment reminders and bill late fees. FreshBooks makes it easy to treat each client like the special client that they are. And you really want to do that in this day and age. They also have award-winning support. If you ever have questions, if you ever want more information, those nice people up in Canada will help you. Whether you're a freelance photographer, a carpenter, or a podcaster, you can choose a plan that's right for you. I'm a big fan, and you will be too. FreshBooks.com/twit. Help them out. Go up there, download the app, help yourself out. Put This Week in Tech in the How Did You Hear About Us box. That helps us out. You'll get 30 days free. And by the way, for a limited time, FreshBooks is offering half off your first 3 months when you sign up for a paid plan. This is for new customers only. Offers can't be combined. FreshBooks.com/twit. Do me a favor. Take a look at them. This is the time. FreshBooks.com/twit. All right. Let's see what people are watching. I'll start. I finished Tiger King. Did you watch it? Anybody?
Yes, I definitely did.
Bizarre, weird.
So weird.
So weird, right? Who knew there were people like that?
Completely.
Now I'm launched. I'm trying to watch happy stuff. The good thing about Tiger King is it's so bizarre. You look at it, you forget your troubles. It's like, what? Andy Anako started it, he said, at 10 o'clock at night, not knowing, and he didn't go to sleep. He pulled an all-nighter. He watched the whole thing. What are you watching? Christina?
I'm watching Little Fires Everywhere, which is the Reese Witherspoon, Kerry Washington show on Hulu. Okay. It's really good. It's really good. I've enjoyed that quite a bit.
Speaking of Hulu, Devs. Oh my God! Have you started watching Devs?
No, I haven't.
It's got the guy who looks just like Brian McCullough in it.
Okay.
Ron Swanson.
Oh, wait, no. I thought you meant Ben Affleck. Yeah. Gotcha.
yeah, that's it. No. It's really weird and interesting, and you should watch it for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's about a startup, a Maya, that's an artificial intelligence startup. The guy who is the founder and kind of crazy long-haired bearded guy, Ron Swanson. What's his real name? I forget his real name.
Yeah.
Love him.
He's married to what's her face.
So
he's married to what's her face.
Yeah,
those two,
He's married to Megan Mullally.
Yes.
Chat room will tell me in a second. They're about 3 seconds. Nick Offerman, thank you. See?
Nick Offerman. God, yeah.
They're good.
Brain fart.
He's really good. He's the founder. They're doing some crazy AI stuff. There's a very shocking first episode where something happens you didn't expect. It looks like it's going to be a mystery/tech, but I knew I was going to like it when the couple, very early on in the show, starts arguing about elliptic curve versus RSA and which is a better encryption algorithm. When they started talking about that, I said, I'm going to like this show. Not to mention Nick Offerman is awesome in it, and it's got a lot of high tech, interesting, high gloss.
Well, and it's another Alex Garland joint, right?
Yes,
the guy that
yeah, he's really good. So that's on Hulu too, by the way.
Yeah, so HBO right now actually has like a bunch of their content available for free. Yeah. So they have, Silicon Valley is one of the shows, 6 Feet Under, Barry, All the Sopranos, Succession, one of my favorite shows.
Those are all great shows. The Wire. Oh my God, one of the best shows ever made.
Ever. And so, in some of their documentaries, too, like the McMillions documentary, which was the series, which was fantastic.
About the McDonald's millionaire contest that was being hacked.
Yes. Oh, which happened in like not that far from where I grew up, which is insane. So that I have to give HBO or Warner Media or whatever kudos for opening up a bunch of their content for free right now.
Which of those would you pick?
Really
I mean, several of those are considered the best shows of all time. Sopranos, The Wire. I have to say, in my opinion, Succession is the greatest show ever made at this point. I am such a fan.
I love Succession. I think it's too early. It's only 2 seasons, so I don't think I can say it's better than The Wire. The Wire.
The Wire went downhill after its first few seasons, so.
The Wire is one of my sins. Actually, my probably pick is it's another one David Simon was involved with is Homicide: Life on the Street. That good one. The early seasons of that.
Are they giving away Veep? Is Veep in that list?
Yes, Veep is on it. True Blood is on it.
Veep is the funniest show ever made.
Veep is so funny. 6 Feet Under, Silicon Valley, Barry, Ballers.
God, they're all good.
So lots of good stuff.
Except for Ballers, that's not a great show. But.
I've watched The Wire all the way through 8 times. So
what?
No one's listened to that. That's my.
So do you agree with me, Brian, that it goes downhill after the first? I don't know, 4
season
seasons?
5. Season 5 was pretty terrible, but season 4 was the season in the schools, and that was season 3 is my favorite. But the season with the schools was just amazing.
The spectacular television, yeah.
What's neat about The Wire is each season is unique. Same characters. The same main characters, scenarios. But different scenarios and stories. And it's really well done, I thought. Yeah. Brilliantly written. Great dialogue. Brilliantly shot. It's a little dated now. I think it's 4:3, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Because I think it started in 2001 or 2002. So, it's almost 20 years ago now.
2002, I believe. Yeah.
So we watched High Fidelity last night, one of my favorite movies of all time.
Same. From
the year 2001.
Mm-hmm. And top 5, definitely on my top 5 list.
5, definitely top 5. And what's weird about it is 2001 sounds like the present to me. Anything with a 2000, but that's 20 years ago. It's kind of mind-boggling. Yeah. This is now an old movie.
Yeah. You just look, I mean, it's funny because...
Yeah.
Before starting, what's funny is that when High Fidelity came out and it's based on a book, like vinyl hadn't gone through the resurgence.
It was still about record stores. Yeah. Well, Nick Hornsby's great, by the way. Wonderful guy.
Well, the whole thing was that it was weird that you had this guy who was into records in 2000.
Was it weird in 2000? Oh, okay.
Yes. And weird. It was weird then. Now it's not weird because like it's this big hipster thing and like vinyl, like it's
come around completely now. Yeah.
Completely. But then it was like this like obscure kind of, hobby.
But they didn't I don't think they had cell phones. There was a lot of activity with landlines. They're eating dinner and they've got a cordless phone, not a cell phone, a cordless phone on the table. It's like, but that was 2001. It doesn't, I guess I'm getting old.
Hey, speaking of High Fidelity and Hulu, by the way, you guys are aware that there's a Zoe Kravitz,
Zoe Kravitz
High Fidelity.
So
yes.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet. In fact, I'm glad now that I watched the movie. I knew that Zoe Kravitz was doing a remake. It's a series. Is it good?
Yeah.
It's good?
I like it.
I haven't seen it.
I was reluctant to watch it because I loved the original so much. And John Cusack is so good. She's playing the John Cusack part.
She is, and she does a good job with it. I mean, it's different. It's similar, but it's different. They've done a good job with it. What's interesting, though, is, her mom, Lisa Bonet, was in the original.
I know. Her mom was in the original.
Well, it's also weird that Lisa Bonet and Zoe Kravitz, like, could be twins. I mean, she like, literally, they look exactly the same. It's
pretty hysterical. Yeah. All right, Jason, you haven't ponied up with something. What do you want to?
Okay. So this is so nerdy because my viewing habits are like Gen Z. I spend most of my time watching YouTube. Awesome. Even though we have subscriptions to Netflix and other things, so it's always something. And I was just looking at while we were doing this, I was like, I got to go look at my YouTube history, I guess, and sort of dig this up. So some of it is just the last couple weeks of what, I've been working on. I mentioned this interfaith thing that I've been doing. So because I'm a Baha'i, I've been learning about different other faiths like the Bhagavad Gita. I've been doing a thing on that, which is really fascinating because that's actually this 3,000-year-old book that's about people during a crisis.
Oh, interesting.
And all of this wisdom.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is it's like this existential crisis. So that was super cool. And also been learning stuff about filmmaking because, CNET is a huge video operation, but there's no operation, right? So everybody's having to film and do stuff on their own. So I'm learning as much as I can to help all of our.
I love what Lexi Savides is doing from home with the cooking Instagrams and stuff. It's so cool. It's really fun to see people kind of discover a new medium almost.
It really is amazing, and it's going to be It's going to fundamentally change the way we do video forever. I have no doubt. So I've been doing that where I'm learning a lot of essentially filmmaking techniques that really we're learning from YouTubers and people that have been doing it with just regular cameras, not big fancy cameras, and phones now, especially these latest phones, which can shoot some amazing video. So I've been doing that, and then also just doing stuff. I loved the health and wellness stuff that Ant mentioned because been doing more kind of stuff around meditation and deep breathing and those kinds of things because
this is the time.
There's so many people that are so stressed out.
Yeah.
And I found last year when I started tracking my sleep, one of the things that I learned was that my heart rate variability was really low, which meant, and especially at night when I was sleeping, which is not good. And so one of the things for that is to do deep breathing and potentially mindfulness exercises before you fall asleep. And it had a really big impact. And so I've started taking that and doing that more often. And so I've been trying to kind of hone that practice and learn more about that. And then, potentially write some things about it and what I learned and my whole, bit from learning about that sort of in the middle of last year to, now this year when everybody is stressed out or anxious, even if they still have a job, because a lot of parents are at home, they've got their kids, they're sometimes in very small places that they can't leave. And there's just a lot of people with a lot of stress and anxiety in their lives and trying to find ways to help, people that work for me, that work with me, and just trying to be useful and helpful to people.
What's a low heart rate variability? Mine's 25 milliseconds. Is that okay? Is that low?
That's bad. Yeah, mine was like 29, and it was like that was yeah. Well, that was the average though. That was like the average when I was sleeping.
Yeah. So, because that's what this is the Oura Ring. That's what I use. And this was a sponsor I think a year ago or two, but I started wearing it because it also measures body temperature. And I want to keep, when your body temperature goes up, of course, that's a sign of illness. I want to keep an eye on that.
Just 5 minutes a day, listening to yourself breathe.
I got to meditate. I got to start meditating.
Have
you been a Baha'i your whole life?
Since I was 19.
Nice. My first girlfriend was a Baha'i. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It's a beautiful religion, the other thing I'm thinking is interesting is a lot of people in quarantine are discovering it as a new medium. New York Times had an article about a comedian, Meg Stalter, who started doing character sketches from her home on Instagram. And they're very rough, but they're very funny, and they're kind of wild. She's kind of crazy. Worth checking out. It's sad because she got featured in the New York Times and everything, and she's got a podcast, and she still only has 27,000 followers. So I'm gonna give her a plug. She's just kind of kooky, but I find this fascinating because there's a new medium arising. I mean, this is what stuff people can do at home with what they got.
That looks like Cindy Sherman stuff. You remember that?
It is kind of Cindy Sherman-like. Yeah.
Where she inhabits a personality.
Right. Yeah, Meg does that. She's a stand-up comic, but she's found, I think, a bigger audience doing that crazy stuff. Couple of sad notes. I don't want to end on a sad note. Let's see. All right, I'll do these and I'll find something good. Jack Schofield, who is The Guardian's Ask Jack tech columnist, died at 72 this week. Not related to COVID, although whenever you hear this now, every time I see somebody's name trending on Twitter, I'm going, oh my God. And Nick Jestinen, who was the technology writer at the AP for a very long time, passed away. He was a young guy, a marathoner, but he died at the age of 51, and he did die of coronavirus. So excellent shape. He had done marathons on all 7 continents, 83 marathons in total. He loved the movies. He watched 365 movies last year, most of them in theaters. He was the deputy technology editor at the Associated Press, died in New York City on Thursday of coronavirus-related complications. So this is a list that's going to start happening, I'm sorry to say, more and more, and it's very sad. Quibi is coming. Speaking of things to watch, what do you think of the Quibi? This is the short-form streaming video service by Meg Whitman and Jeff Katzenberg. I don't know. Do you want to watch short shows? Is there a market?
Fascinated by the concept. I think there is.
Same.
I'm fascinated by the concept. I'm not crazy about any of the first shows they put out. None of those make me think like, oh yeah, I've got to see that. But
all big celebrities, big names, right?
Yeah.
Because they have a lot of money to spend. It's not TikTok. It's not YouTube. It's Quibi. You can get it for free, I think, for some, I can't remember, 3 months. If you're a T-Mobile subscriber, they're starting to make deals. Launches on Monday, tomorrow. Quibi
it's interesting timing. I think I read something, or I didn't read the article. I just saw the headline that it's either like the best or the worst timing for a launch. I'm intrigued by this because I think the concept is interesting. I definitely think that there's a market for it there. It depends on the execution a lot. Content is hard, but Jeffrey Katzenberg, I would never bet against him because his, track record speaks for itself. But it's interesting. I think that there is probably a place, especially as we're all consuming stuff, to kind of sit in between, YouTube and Netflix and Hulu and TikTok and other things. So I'm definitely going to sign up.
I went to their keynote at CES, and I sat in the audience, and I was like, oh, this seems like a really good idea. And then I walked out and I remembered, no, this is a dumb idea.
I always do that at keynotes. It's the reality distortion field. A good keynote will make you think anything's a good idea. Why is it a dumb idea?
Because number one, who needs why are they hamstringing themselves and doing the short form? So like some of the things are just like little episodes or whatever, but some of them are shot like real movies where you have to watch it 10 minutes at a time. So why are they not just putting it together as a 2-hour thing? It's like this weird experiment, and not to put on the history hat, but Leo, you will remember this. I mean, Katzenberg and Spielberg and all those guys did Pop.com back in the .com bubble, and it was the same thing where he was obsessed with 5 minute or it's like Katzenberg. Somebody told him that kids today don't have an attention span or something, and it's just never left his head.
That's right. And I've always gone in the opposite direction. I'm the guy doing 2.5-hour podcasts. In fact, that's right.
Well, but that's my point. Is like, why are they artificially hamstringing themselves? Like, just so we're only going to make Quibi. The name is Quick Bites, so like that's their whole reason for being. But I just don't understand why they're doing it that way.
Yeah, here's what I find. I will find intriguing is if this is a new medium where they can say, look, you got, that's what TikTok did and Vine before it. And it became something pretty important because the constraint made it interesting. So if you just take a 22-minute, sitcom and chop it up into chunks, or a 2-hour movie and chop it into chunks, that's not interesting. And I'm afraid,
which is what they seem to want to do.
Given their Hollywood roots, they may do that.
Right. I'm with you. It's like, if that's all it is, then that's not interesting. But this has always been the promise of these mediums to me. And we've seen some people do it successfully, but many of them not.
Usually by accident, right?
Yeah.
Usually it's like, who knew that Vine was going to make these celebrities and stars?
Right. But if you adapt the medium, that's actually, I think you're right. It's an interesting constraint. But if all you're going to do is chop existing things up, I mean, it's similar to, I think Netflix now, people have finally hit their stride and starting to produce TV shows for the age of binging. But for a long time, and some are still produced this way, it is still very much produced in an episodic way, even if all the episodes are released at once. Right. And that adjusts your story structure. You have to give background. You have to catch people up because you're, producing them in capsules. Whereas now we have started to see more shows go into we're not going to give you the backstory. Yeah. We're just going to continue on the next thing.
No more previously on.
Right. But it'll be interesting to see, like, if it if they can start to create new things just for this medium. My podcast co-host, Simone de Rochefort, Polygon, where she works, they are working on something for Quibi, and it won't be launching at launch, but it'll be available after that. And she seems pretty excited. So very least, I
would never root against Simone. I think she's great. I'm not a good person. And so I'm rooting against him because I have it's almost schadenfreude. I don't want them to succeed because I don't want to see Hollywood march into our realm. I feel like if it organically develops, if Vine or YouTube or Periscope or TikTok organically develops as a new medium, from the ground up, from the grassroots up, that's great. If Hollywood says, oh, let's see what the kids are doing, we're going to make up something that the kids will like, come from the top down, I hate that. And so
that's why I think it won't work.
That's why I'm rooting against them. And it may work, who knows? But that's why I'm rooting
don't you think, and nothing against, like, I'm a terrible person too, but and I definitely have like my own like schadenfreude thing. But don't you think, I mean, that one of the problems that tech companies have had, I think just in general, has been they don't understand content. And conversely, one of the problems that Hollywood places have had is they don't understand technology. So, you know,
we've been waiting for the so-called convergence since 2001.
Yeah, I mean, I think Netflix is probably the closest we have to that, right? Or maybe Prime. But even then, I think you could argue like the reason that Apple TV's initial forays into content didn't work is they didn't have content people doing anything, you know, and that's why we got things like, Attack of the Apps or whatever the game show was called. And once they hired actual content people from Hollywood, the content got a lot better. So I don't know, you need a mix, but it's interesting. But I'm with you. I mean, I'm skeptical, but I'm also, I don't know, anytime this much money has gone into something and you have people this cachet, it's either going to succeed despite the hype cycle, or it's going to be one of those really interesting, wow, people really thought that was going to be a thing.
Right.
It wasn't, you know?
I do think Brian's right, though, that I think the instinct is right that, this could be one of those things where they're looking at you, the Hollywood industry is looking at YouTube and is like, 7-minute videos. That's what everybody wants right now. So let's just take our 2-hour movie and cut it into 7-minute slices and give it to them,
Profit.
all like that, which is like willfully misunderstands what the whole thing is about, right?
I agree. Well, we'll find out tomorrow.
Totally.
We'll find out tomorrow. April 23rd, the FCC will set a vote on the opening of the 6 gigahertz band for unlicensed use, including Wi-Fi 6E. That is really interesting. I mean, Wi-Fi happened because the 2.4 gigahertz band was unregulated, mostly because they thought baby monitors and telephones would use it. Along comes Wi-Fi, and it's another example of kind of the serendipitous discovery of something new that changed the world. Now they're getting they got 5 gigahertz. Now they're going to get an extra 6 gigahertz band. I think we'll be covering that as that happens. I'm sure they'll vote yes on that. It would free up 1,200 megahertz of additional bandwidth for next-gen Wi-Fi 6E devices with antennas and chipsets capable of tapping into it. Nothing you have today is capable. So it'd be a whole new realm of things. I think we've done this long enough. It's time to self-isolate. Go home. Get out of here. Thank you, Jason Heiner. He is executive director at CNET and a wonderful fellow to boot. And you can find out more at Jason Heiner on the Twitter. Anything you want to talk about? Are you working on something that you want to share with the world?
Yeah, just that, one of the things that my team has been doing some really great work over the last few weeks since we've, started to hit the heart of the storm on coronavirus, although, we're probably a few weeks away from that, but doing content just to help people, right? So they're doing content to help people work from home, content to help people, cook, help them to know what self-isolating means and what are some of the best practices, help them find educational resources for their kids because they're having to educate their kids, keep them occupied and doing something constructive. So I've just been super proud of my team. They've tried to take all of this coronavirus stuff and not capitalize on it, but actually just be super user focused and find ways to just be useful and helpful and find the ways to produce content that's going to make people better, less anxious, more productive in some cases, and better parents, all of those things.
Nice.
So
nice.
CNET.com, you can find it all there. There's actually a COVID-19 page on there, but it's not really about COVID-19 so much. It's about all of the things that people are doing and ways that we can offer to help deal with it. And also, obviously, buying advice for products and which things to avoid and which things you can get. And lots of things are sold out. So which things you can actually find right now.
Not easy. Actually, this is not that page, but this is something I'm going to tell you about in a second.
Sure.
Tell me the page again, and I'll pull that up real quick.
Yeah, if you go to CNET.com and just in the upper left-hand corner, there's COVID-19 is our page. It has some information about that, but you see we have how-to and Thrive at Home. Those places too are also.
This is good
stuff.
See, this is what I like is that people are taking this as also an opportunity to do something new and interesting, and this is a great way to live in the world that we're in and make something of it. And by the way, do recommend Roger Cheng's piece. We ran out of time. There was so much to talk about. Of course, the T-Mobile merger with Sprint was official on April 1st, and John Legere, as he said he would, stepped down as CEO of T-Mobile, in a great piece on how John Legere changed the mobile world for the better. And what
great commentary from Roger.
Yeah, a fascinating guy who did, in fact, improve, I think, our world by competing with the big cell phone companies. So,
he changed the way they do business.
Do we know what John's going to do going forward?
I don't think so.
He hasn't announced it, but he was my favorite CEO for quite some time.
A lot of fun to cover, right? A lot of fun.
Very fun to cover. Yeah. Very fun to cover.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Christina Warren, for being here. Film Girl at @film_girl on the Twitter. Of course, senior cloud advocate at Microsoft, a fancy, snazzy dresser and a terrible cook. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you, as always, for having me. It's good to be here.
We love having you on. You're just the greatest. Thank you, Christina. You are in one of the hot spots. How are things in Seattle these days? Getting better?
The trend seems to be going in the right direction. I was a little bit concerned with how many people we kind of saw out and about today. We knew why we were on the road, but we saw a lot of cars out. But you don't know what their reasons are. Don't want to judge too harshly. But yeah, I mean, our governor has said that the state will be in lockdown for another month. So just getting real comfortable with my apartment.
Yes. and I hope you have plenty of lipstick stocked up because, yes, very important.
Yeah, it is. No, I actually, you joke, but I mean, I'm having concerns. I need to get my hair cut. There's all kinds of
haircut's going to be interesting. You can see I'm getting a little shaggy. I'm not going out. I'm not getting my hair cut. I'm going to look
Places aren't even open.
Yeah. Where are you going to go?
We're all in this together.
We're going to find out what everybody's real hair color is in another few weeks. Thank you, Christina. Thank you also, Brian McCullough. I think he's a natural brunette. I believe so. Brian is the host of the Tech Meme Ride Home podcast and the brand new podcast, The Morning Coronavirus Update. Ride Home.
Coronavirus morning briefing.
I'll never get it.
Morning report.
Nobody's going to get the title right, but it's all you got to do is go to ridehome.info, and there it is right there. You can listen to it. A quick half hour, 15 minutes to half hour on what's going on in the world around us. Good timing on this.
The only reason we did it is because, for 2 years we've been putting ourselves in front of the fire hose of tech news to give it to you in 15 minutes. And so we thought, all right, let's put ourselves in front of the fire hose of this COVID news. And we're not breaking all the news, but if you're nervously refreshing all your feeds every 5 minutes, we're going to hopefully cure you of that because we'll tell you all you need to know in the morning.
And you're doing games and celebrity news now.
That's right.
You're not the host of all of those, are you?
No. I do the Corona one and the Tech Meme one, but we have someone out in LA that does the celeb news one, and we have a great a games journalist that got laid off in one of those recent waves that we were able to pick up and put him on the payroll to do a games ride home.
Are you part of the Art19 family now, or is that just a partnership?
That's just the host, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Great to have you, Brian. I do want to mention, just talking about new media, while we're all stuck at home, the star of The Office, John Krasinski, everybody's favorite nice guy, started a YouTube channel a week ago. It already has 1 million subscribers, and his first video has 12 million views. It's called Some Good News with John Krasinski, and I love it. It is very low tech. It looks like he's got a table light as one of his lights, and it looks like his daughter made his sign, SGN. But this is what we need now, is real people who used to be famous movie stars doing shows from their home. They're all getting in the act. I should go star in a movie. I should get a sitcom. Serve them right. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It's great to have you, Christina and Brian and Jason. Thanks to all of you, too. I hope you're staying home and staying safe. We do Twit every Sunday afternoon, and we're going to keep doing it. Our 15th anniversary episode's 2 weeks off. Kevin Rose, David Prager, Robert Heron, 3 of the original cast members from Twit #1 will be joining. I don't know if Prager's joining us. Patrick Norton. I left out Patrick Norton. So 3 or 4, depends who we get, of the original cast members. But at least Kevin, Patrick, and Heron will be there on the 19th as we celebrate 15 years. No cupcakes, no balloons. We're donating the vast sums that we normally spend on confetti and balloon drops for this kind of event. We're donating it to local first responders because they need it a lot more than we do. But I hope we'll see you here for that. 2:30 Pacific, 5:30 Eastern, 21:30 UTC. You can watch the live stream at twit.tv/live. There's also live audio streams there. And you can get every show we do on demand at our website, twit.tv. Best thing that you could do, would sure help us, is subscribe in your favorite podcast client. That way you get it automatically every Monday morning in time for your commute from the bedroom to the living room. I know you won't get a whole lot of the show, but you can listen again on Tuesday. Or maybe just take some time and listen. We appreciate your being here. We're all part of it, the family. We're all in it together. And we thank you for listening. Another Twit is in the can.
This is amazing.
Take care, everybody.
Doing the Twit.